Okay, so I'm on, and do we have video?
Yes, we have video.
Wonderful. So good evening, everybody. Sorry for the little bit of delay. We're having some technical issues. A program that I'm using to record this so that you guys can watch it again in the full high definition is conflicting with Zoom somehow. So we're going to have to just share you the Zoom recording, and I'll do it that way. It's just not going to be in the full resolution. I apologize for that in advance. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started because it is time. We're going to cook along tonight. We're going to go ahead and start off prepping some stuff. I'm going to be following the recipes like you guys because I have so much to talk about. It'll be easier if I just keep referring to my own recipes so I don't forget things. But we need to do a couple things to start off with the beginning, and that is just to do some standard, hey, I'm a business stuff. Yeah, so first off, I need to find out, can everybody hear me? Now, I say that, you guys can chat amongst yourselves. However, Q&A goes straight to me or to my assistant so that she can read them to me. Sorry, I feel like I'm yelling at a camera. I have to reduce my voice down. But anyway, Q&A, if you put your questions in there to me, then we get them. They stay on screen until we answer them so that we see them. Chat goes by so fast, that's why we don't do that. Okay, so we got a couple of I hears. That's good, which means the sound is going out. You can obviously see me, so we're doing good. So, again, welcome to Taz Cooks. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, to check out tazcooks.com for hundreds of more recipes from all over the world. You can share your recipes with me there. I'll format them and put them on my website. They don't have to be fancy. They don't have to be ethnic. They can be anything. I love to try other people's recipes. So feel free to share your recipes with me over there, and I'll put them up and give you guys the credit. So do that. Don't forget to follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and of course you can find me over on Yelp as well. So don't forget to follow me there, like, subscribes, all those wonderful things that we have to do for social media. And with that, we're going to kind of just jump right in. I'm just going to do it this way and say, is everybody ready to start? And I'll give you a moment while I pull a couple things over to my center area. Okay, well, I'm assuming you're all ready to start. You're not responding, but hey, we're going to go ahead and start. So we're going to start off, like I said, so we're going to do this in a little bit of piecemeal because we have to do for timing purposes. So we're going to get our yeast going for our naan. And we just have 2/3 of a cup of lukewarm water. You don't want it over 110 degrees Fahrenheit. That'll kill the yeast. And you don't want it cold. So temperatures vary by what people tell you, but basically if it feels cold to your touch, it's too cold and it'll kill the yeast. So you just want lukewarm, room temperature water. If it feels slightly warm to your touch, then it's fine. When you're that, we're using active dry yeast. I'm going to hold it so the above camera can see it. We're using active dry yeast. If you can't find active dry yeast, yeah, it flips it. If you can't find active dry yeast, instant yeast will be fine. Then you don't have to bloom it like we're going to do. I am not a fan of instant or ready yeast, so I use active dry. So we're going to bloom it. Now, each packet is about 1.5 teaspoons according to their thing on the back. And our recipe calls for just about a teaspoon. And I just lost my paper. But anyway, we're just going to dump the entire package in. It's easier than trying to measure anything out. We're going to dump the entire package in to our water, 2/3 of a cup, and we're going to add 1 teaspoon of powdered sugar. Now, you could use any other sugar if you want. The reason I use powdered sugar, if it's a little heaping, it's not a problem. But the reason I use powdered sugar is that it dissolves into the liquid very quickly, and therefore it just gets things acting faster and working out better. So that's why I use powdered sugar, but you could use granulated sugar. You just want to mix it in until it's fully dissolved. We're going to put that in there, and we're going to let that do its thing. And we're just going to set that off to the side. And that's our first little bit. get a little bit of that yeast I dropped and get it in off my board. And we're going to put that away, and that's it for the sugar. I'm going to throw it over here. Back on camera. Okay, so that's going to sit off to the side. I'll put it over here just to get things moving. If we need to, we'll go back and give it a quick stir because the yeast kind of lumps up occasionally and whatever. So we'll just make it. But what we're looking for, we've got about 10 minutes on that. So we want to make sure that it gets frothy, and then we know that it's active and that it's been fed. And that's what it's eating, is the sugar, and that's what causes yeast to give it its gas. It's burps, so to speak, that give rise to breads. And naan is a leavened bread. So unlike baking powder or soda, it uses actual yeast, making it a leavened flat bread. And we'll do that. So we're going to set that off to the side for now. We're going to go ahead and start our chicken because we need to get it to marinate. So that's the next thing we're going to work on. So I'm just going to bring over my chicken. Now I'm using chicken thighs, which is what I told you to use in the recipe. Thighs, I love chicken thighs, dark meat. They're wonderful. They have a lot more flavor than white meat, and they can be much more tender and juicy. We're just going to easily trim off any big chunks of fat that we may not like the look of. We don't have to get fancy here because fat means flavor. So we don't want to take all of it off. Just anything that's just really large. Just, trim it off and get it out of the way. And then the great thing about using chicken thighs, oh, there's another piece. The great thing about using chicken thighs for this is that there's no special way of cutting it. We have to cut it into bite-sized pieces. That means anything from a 1/4 inch square to an inch, inch and a half square, whatever you really feel like. I go for about inch-ish, 3/4 to an inch-ish. I'm not going to try to worry about it. So this and that, those are fine. That's perfectly fine as far as a bite-sized piece goes. Remember, they're going to shrink a little bit when they cook. So that's it. So again, we're just going to slice our chicken into pieces, chunk it into cubes. Any pieces that are little stray things, don't worry about them, get them out of the way, and toss them off to the side. Any bit bigger, it's not a problem. A little bit smaller, it's not a problem. So we're going to continue on with that with the chicken. Now, while we're cutting up the chicken, and I'll give you time to do this as well, while I'm cutting, we're going to talk about chicken tikka masala. Now, we're making a deli style, which New Delhi, Old Delhi. The thing about a deli style, what makes a deli style, is that it's obviously, I learned the recipe in Delhi, but what makes it different is that it's a return to India recipe, which means the tikka masala, which we'll discuss in a second, its origins, but tikka masala, Delhi style, is made closer to British curry house tikka masalas in its flavors. So that's what we're doing tonight. It just differs it up with that, and it's in the marinade. In the gravy that it does that. So we'll get to that. But the origins of tikka masala, many Indians and Brits will tell you that chicken tikka masala is not Indian, that it's not an original Indian dish. It doesn't come from India, that it was invented by the Brits. More specifically, it was invented in Edinburgh in the 70s by a Balti chef at his restaurant. The story goes that he was working one night and he had a cold. A bus driver came in late in the evening and ordered tandoori chicken. And he was served his tandoori chicken, but when he got it, he said it was too dry and he didn't like it, so he sent it back to the kitchen. Now the chef was told that the guy didn't like it, it was too dry, so he took what he had on hand, which happened to be a can of tomato soup by Campbell's, and he threw it in a pot, threw the chicken in with it, added a little bit of cream and a couple of spices, and served it to the guy, and he loved it, and that's the birth of chicken tikka masala. Now, if you're like me and you just heard what I told you were the ingredients of it, and I have actually It's disgusting. It's awful. So I don't know how this could be the truth. The thing is this. There are recipes of chicken tikka masala that go all the way back. We're talking generations. So to the Kashmiri, to the Mughal Empire in India, we're talking 800, minimum 400, because I have one recipe that I can trace back literally in the family 400 years. So at least then, but much longer. They were making dishes of chicken tikka masala. Well, how do I know that? Well, two reasons. Again, I have recipes that go back that far. But the second thing is that the name, murg, chicken, tikka, small bites or chunks, masala, spiced. So you're right. Only the Brits or in Edinburgh could have ever invented a dish of spiced chunks of chicken. Really? Give me a break. The thing is what the guy invented, regardless if he used Campbell's soup, regardless of the truth of the story of the bus driver, what the guy did invent was a way to make it in the restaurant using leftovers, tandoori chicken. And restaurants to this day use pre-made, pre-baked tandoori chicken to speed up the process and get it on the stove for you, because you can't wait 20, 25, 30 minutes, and in reality, 3 to 6 hours or longer for your plate of food. And so that's what he invented. But the dish is definitely Indian. It's definitely older than Edinburgh, Scotland. And so, and that's the thing. Now, as I said, this is a little closer to a British chicken tikka masala. And the reason I said it's a return to India, it's because, Delhi has a large tourist industry, and a lot of Westerners come to Delhi, New Delhi and Delhi, Old Delhi. And so they've kind of altered their recipes at the hotels and restaurants to be, suited to the Westerner. So they've done a few things that that aren't done in the traditional or the older recipes or the home recipes. And we'll talk about that when we get to it in the marinades, but that's one thing. And the other thing that's very important to understand, and I'm telling you now, is that there are a couple of cheats in this recipe. For example, we're using tomato paste, and we're baking it in an oven. Speaking of which, let's get our ovens preheating to 350 degrees. And we're going to just go ahead and let it start preheating so that it's ready for us when we need it. But the reason that we're using these couple of cheats is that, first off, what they do is that they throw the chicken in the pot, they get it simmering, they braise it over time. That time is they start in the morning, and they could serve it the next day, but they're probably going to serve it for dinner, which means that these things simmer for a minimum of 6-8 hours. You don't have 6-8 hours. I don't have 6-8 hours, and this class is in 6-8 hours. So we're going to bake it to kind of rush that process through. And we're using tomato paste because they use pureed tomatoes, which we are going to be using, but they will boil them down and simmer them down until they're very thick, making a paste, and you get that flavor. They do that as part of their daily, weekly, or monthly regime in the kitchen to have ingredients around. Well, we're not doing that. So again, cheat, we're using some tomato paste to boost that flavor and add that. So that's what we're doing as far as a cheat. So, but as cheats, but that's really all we're doing different. So anyway, it's time to make the marinade. Now, we're going to be using plain yogurt, plain whole fat yogurt. You could use Greek yogurt, but I have found that there's a couple things I say about Greek yogurt. First off, the United States, we do not sell Greek yogurt. We don't sell anything that is like Greek yogurt. We sell, quote, Greek style yogurt. Greek yogurt is raw milk, straight from the animal. Cultures are added and fermented, which means it has the full cream, the full butter, fat, everything's in it. That's what makes it so thick and rich. We in the United States do not do raw milk. We separate it out to make butter, we separate it out to make cream, and then we use the milk. Even full fat, this has skim milk to fill it out because they didn't use the full fat. The thing is that almost all yogurts are that way, okay? So what are they doing? They're making regular yogurt, they're putting it in cheesecloth or in industrial presses or whatever, and they're squeezing out more of the liquid to make it thicker, which means that they charge more for an extra step for less that they get out of volume from what they're making. So that's what we call it Greek yogurt, but it's not Greek yogurt, it's Greek style yogurt. So I don't waste my time. And in a lot of cases, the really good Greek style yogurts are a little more expensive, sometimes even twice as much. So I just don't spend the money. I just buy regular full fat yogurt. We're going to put in a cup. Now I'm just going to go ahead and use a half cup measuring cup to scoop out. So I told you about 42 ounces, a big tub, because we got some for the Raita, we got some for the marinated, we've got some for the naan as well. So anyway, we're just going to put it in a cup. Now you'll notice that when I'm measuring, I'm not too concerned. If it's a little over, it's a little under, I'm not concerned. Why? Well, this is cooking. Cooking is by sight, by feel, by taste, by sight, all, you know, by soul. Baking is a science. Flatbreads are not baking, so we're not worried about that. So in cooking, a cup is a cup is a cup. We all know that there's a difference between a cup of liquid, a cup of solids, you know, a measuring cups when you're talking a liquid measuring cup or a regular measuring cup, but a cup is a cup is a cup. And if you're a little over, a little under, it's not the end of the world. None of the recipes are going to have an issue because of that, okay? So we're gonna do that. Now, we're gonna take ginger and we're gonna get out a microplane. We're gonna grate our ginger right into our bowl. Now, it says that we need about a ½ piece of ginger. Now, there's two things I want to tell you about ginger while you're getting yourself prepared. One, do you have to peel it? Absolutely not. The only reason you would peel ginger is because there are long strings that run this way through the ginger. And if you're using long stripes of it, those strings would stay intact. And then like celery, they can get caught in your teeth and they're a little unpleasant. So if you're not cutting it that way, which we're using a microplane, so we're going to macerate the heck out of it. The second reason you would do it is for garnish, you know, to make pretty. So that's the only reason you need to peel your ginger. Don't waste your time doing it. The second thing I need to tell you is a ½ inch of ginger. Do you use a ½ inch of the little thin part, or do you use a ½ inch of the big thick part? Use a ½ inch. That's the answer. Do you like ginger? Use the big thick part. You don't like ginger as much? Use the thin part. Again, this is cooking. It's not the end of the world. So right into our yogurt here, I'm going to grate in about a ½ inch. Straight using the microplane, straight in. I did wash my ginger and then let it dry out again. You know, it's the skin, but that's it. So again, I'm going to take a guess at about a ½ inch. I was just looking at where my kind of like the ridges on the ginger are, any distinguishing marks. And I've chosen where I'm going to end my grating, and that's where I'm going to end my grating. Again, if it's not 100% ½ inch, I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so just a little bit more. And we're going to dump that in, and we're going to put the ginger off to the side. The next thing we're going to do is 4 cloves of fresh garlic, which I happen to have over in a bowl off to the side here. Sorry for me leaning out of camera. I apologize, guys. It's going to happen occasionally. That's not... Grab a few. Okay, so we want 4 cloves. Now, again, we're just going to use the microplane grater. We're going to grate it in. You can take off the small woody bits if you really want to, but you know what? Since we're going to do this, what's going to happen is you can hold it right there, and when you get down to that last little tiny nub that you can't use on the microplane, you just throw it away, and then you didn't have to chop off the little woody bit. So we got 4 cloves of garlic. Again, large, small, how much do you like garlic? I'm a garlic hog. I don't think you can have too much garlic, so I use, you know, big. I'll even throw in some extras. But again, so you get down to that little nub that you can't use anymore, it goes in the trash. That's all there is to it. So we're going to grate that into our yogurt. Think of all the flavor and all that. And this is our marinade. So that's 2. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and we'll get in. Lauren will read them off to me, and then I can respond to your questions. We're going to do that. Now, I used a little bit of small pieces, so I'm going to do one extra one in here. Just like I said, I like garlic, so I'm going to go ahead and do one of these small ones in there just to kind of, for the fact that these weren't the biggest cloves of garlic. Okay, so that's in. We're going to put that off to the side. Get our ginger and garlic out of the way for now. Now, so you'll notice though too, I'm using this rag. I have bleach water on it. It's 2 caps of bleach to a gallon of water. And that way I can just keep wiping my hands instead of running to the sink every 10 minutes for chicken and so forth. And also my knife, so that I can sanitize it and move on. But I am going to be using a second board for my vegetables. So that's what we're doing. Anyway, so now it's time for spices. So this, and I need to move my board so I don't want to set stuff in the chicken. So this is a masala dabba, D-A-B-B-A, dabba. Means masala, spice, dabba, box, spice box. Now, it's not meant for long-term storage. It's meant to have the stuff that you use the most often at your fingertips and ready to use. Inside, under the lid, sometimes there's an interior lid, but inside there are 7 little katoris. These are the little katoris, little cups, and it can hold 7 different of your favorite spices or the ones you use the most often of in your, again, at your fingertips. I have 2 of them. Some, every Indian household has one of these or multiples of these. I actually have a friend in California who has an entire wall of cabinets filled with these that he has, that they're all set. That was just my oven beeping. But he's set with the ones he uses for, and again, not even Indian. He uses them for everything. He's got some for Thai, he's got some for Chinese, he's got some for American foods and whatever, some for sweets, some for savories. He just puts all the spices that he uses most commonly for those dishes in them, and that's how he does it. Now, we need 1 to 2 teaspoons of red chili powder. Now, red chili powder, lal mirchi is what it's called in India. It's made in, very simply, they dry the chilies and then they grind the chilies. Seeds, membrane, there's a thing called the placenta, and the stem, all is ground. I'm going to put in about 1.5 teaspoons because the people I'm serving this to tonight are not the big into the spices. So I'm going to cut it back a little bit, and you can too. And that. The reason I tell you that that's the way that lal mirchi is made is because lal mirchi is much hotter than, say, cayenne pepper, which again I told you could use. The reason cayenne pepper is less heat is, number one, it's using less hot chilies to begin with, but also because they remove the stem, they remove the placenta, the seeds, and the membrane, and only grind up the flesh. So they've taken most of that heat out of the chilies to begin with. India uses much hotter chilies, and they grind the whole chili. So lal mirchi is hotter. So you know that. I make my own. I use 3 different chilies that I grind together. I use a Japanese chili, I use a Punjabi chili, and then I randomly throw in other chilies depending on what I feel like at the time. To get the flavor and the balance that I like. A lot of lal mirchis that you'll buy at the Indian markets and stuff have red food coloring put inside of them. They don't tell you that, and that's what they are, so bright red. It's probably not real, just to let you know. It's not going to hurt you. It's not bad for you. You'll excrete it as needed. It's not, you can't digest the red dye, but it's just there to make it look more colorful. Something you need to know. So we got the chili powder in there. Then we got our garam masala. And our garam masala, now I make my own. Some of you have taken classes from me before, and you may have taken one of my spice classes where we ground this. This is my garam masala mixture, but you can buy the garam masala. Hopefully you got yours at the store or online. And it's a mixture. All garam masalas basically have the 5 C's. Hope I get them all. 5 C's of coriander, cumin, cinnamon, cloves, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, cloves, and cardamom are the 5 C's. They all have the 5 C's with very few exceptions. And then on top of that, they can have literally innumerable ingredients. I've seen as many as up to 60. I think it gets really muddled at that point, so I don't see the point. Mine has about 16, 17, I think, off the top of my head in there, but it's very flavorful, very aromatic. It's used either in the dish or at the end where you get the full aromatic experience. So we need 2 teaspoons of the garam masala in there. And that's our 2 teaspoons of garam masala in our marinade. We're gonna put that aside. We got coriander powder. Now I grind in advance, so I told you to use powder, but I buy all my spices whole, like the coriander seeds here. I grind them as I need them, roast and grind as I need. So, but I did grind in advance. We have a teaspoon of coriander powder, and even though there is coriander in the garam masala, it's to heighten that flavor. So that's why we add more spices to it. We need a half a teaspoon of cumin powder. Again, I've done that in advance. I don't normally measure, but you know, hey, since I'm on camera, I'll go ahead and use measuring spoons and work with that way. So we're gonna put that off to the side. I'm gonna get my spice box out of the side for just a moment, set it off to the side. We need kosher salt to taste. I shouldn't have closed my box. We need kosher salt to taste. So about half a teaspoon or so in there. When you get that in there, did I miss anything besides the lemon and the ghee? No, we have not, so we're going to move on. So next is the juice of the lemon. 1 lemon. We all know the trick. Roll it on the board. Break up some of the stuff. It's going in with raw chicken, so I'm not concerned about it. Chop it in half. And then one of my favorite tools, which I put in that drawer, this lemon squeezer.
Question.
Yes.
Kosher salt, is it coarse?
Kosher salt is a coarse salt, so coarse sea salt would also work. But coarse salts versus table salts like your Morton's is about half as salty per volume because of the larger grit, larger flakes, whichever. Right, so kosher is a coarse salt. So make sure that if you're using table salt, to cut your salt in half of what I put in your measurements. But any coarse salt will be close enough for that. So we're just gonna squeeze our lemon juice in there. We get a ton out with these, with this type of a squeezer, which is why I love it. It turns the lemon almost inside out. So wonderful. So we're gonna put our 2 halves of our lemon, the juice of 1 lemon in there. It's gonna go over in my dirt bowl over there. That's what I'm calling it for right now. I'll set that aside, and then we need 2 tablespoons of ghee. Now, ghee is clarified butter, and you could use clarified butter. The reason I don't use clarified butter, simply put, is that clarified butter is usually more expensive because it's French. Sorry, she keeps reminding me that the camera shows it backwards. So anyway, so ghee is Indian clarified butter. It's pure Desi ghee. Desi is usually used to mean that it's from the homeland or it's from India. So this is pure Indian ghee from, I believe, Michigan. In other words, it's a marketing term. Desi has also begun to be used almost like kosher, meaning that there is a specific way the cows are raised and treated and fed that makes them Desi cows. This is new to me within the last year, so I'm still learning what that means too. So they may be saying these are Desi raised cows and not from the homeland. So there you go. But clarified butter stays good at, or stays almost liquid at room temperature. So it's soft, and you can just, 2 tablespoons we're going to put in there. That adds richness. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons to our bowl. I want to get as much in there as possible because I love me some ghee. Adds some incredible flavor to things. So get that in there. And but you can buy it. I buy, obviously, you see, I buy very large jars of this stuff because I go through it quite regularly. I use it to cook my eggs with, and omelets and so forth, instead of melting unsalted butter and so forth. It is unsalted, clarified butter. So I do that, which is a wonderful thing to add flavor to things. It is very, very, very buttery aroma and flavor, adds wonderful richness to things. So you can use it for much more than just Indian. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a spatula. We're going to just give that a quick, gentle mix to get the spices incorporated in. It's a little loose because of the lemon juice, and that's fine. We don't need to mix this thoroughly at this moment. I just want to kind of get it partially mixed, because the next trick is to just dump in all of our chicken. It goes all in. And again, you can use your hands for your mixing. You can use your spoon, whatever. Since I already started with one, I'm just going to go ahead and fold this through. And again, we're just going to do this. And this is going to continue to mix all those things together as we fold. I'm looking for it just to be well coated and well distributed. And we're just going to go ahead and scooch down into the sides so that it's all kind of there. We're going to do that. We're going to set that off to the side and let that marinate until we're ready for it in just a few minutes. We want to give it at least a half an hour or so. So we'll get back to that. We're going to continue on to other dishes. I'm going to get rid of my chicken board so it's not in my way. And that gives me, as I said, I've got the bleach water so I can sanitize my area and my knife. I'm going to move that recipe off to the side for right now. And I'm just going to move over another clean board. So this one has not had the chicken on it. And again, I've bleached it, so we're all good. So we're going to go back to our dough now, our naan. So you see that our yeast has foamed and gotten all frothy like a beer had on top of it. That means it's alive, it means it's eating, it means it's doing its thing, and it means it's ready to go. So we've had that sitting off to the side, we've had that ready. So there's our yeast. And get out another big mixing bowl and a strainer or a sifter. I'm going to switch up a little size. So this is just a Indian strainer or sifter. It works great for all kinds of things. So I'm going to do that. And we need 2 cups of maida. Now, I told you to use maida, which is Indian all-purpose flour. Comes with different brands and whatever. But maida is a whole wheat flour that is very finely ground. So it's more in it, and because it's a full wheat flour, unlike a Western all-purpose flour, which is a whole wheat, but they do a little bit of mixing involved, so it's all-purpose. It has a little bit less gluten in it than maida does, which is why you would use pastry flour as a substitute, because it has a little bit higher gluten than all-purpose flour, and it has the consistency of maida. So if you can't get maida, all-purpose will work. It's just not quite the same chewiness to the naan that you might be used to from an Indian restaurant or so forth. So, so that's why there's that. So. So we need 2 cups of flour. We're going to sift it into the bowl. Again, a little over, a little under, because again, so one of the things that's about, whoa, a little bit of an explosion, but hey, I can accommodate. The thing about flour is that every flour out there, no matter what kind it is, each bag is going to be slightly different than other bags. It has to do with humidity, it has to do with temperature, it has to do with where it was ground, where it was packaged, where it was grown. Everything has differences, and therefore it's going to absorb more or less liquid, every type of flour that, every bag of flour that you buy. So so you're always going to have to adjust, regardless. You're always going to have to a little bit for this kind of a thing. So we're going to get our just sifted in there so we don't have any lumps. Put that off to the side. Now, what we need to do here is we need to first off add in 3 tablespoons of yogurt. This is optional, but I love the tang, the kind of underlying tang it gives you to the bread that kind of hits you back here. It's just really nice part of that. It's kind of like buttermilk in pancakes or something like that. So it's a very good thing to add. Now, before I do that, since I still have ghee on here, which I need to add to this anyway, we're going to add some ghee to this as well, which adds, again, richness to the dough, but it also adds a little bit of oil incorporated within the dough, which helps that, which needs 4 tablespoons or a 1/4 cup. So it's quite a bit of ghee. Again, I'm just going to dump in. And we're going to dump that in. And then I'm not worried about it because we're going to be using ghee for other stuff and yogurt for other things. I'm just going to go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of yogurt as well to our dough. Get that back out of the way, and I might have to rinse dishes here in a bit so that I have extra spoons and so forth. However, we're going to do that. Get stuff out of the way. Try to work clean. You see, I'm working in a very small space here for this class, you know, and what I do for the classes. So just try to work, you know, clean and all that. Now, I didn't sift in the salt, but it's not, you know, the end of the world to go ahead and add it in. Now, about 1 heaping teaspoon is what you need for the dough. So, you know, it's about a heaping teaspoon of salt. So I didn't sift it in, but I was talking, and it happens. So now that we have it here, we're going to use our hand. We're going to work this into the dough first before we add any other liquid, and we're going to make it into kind of sand. You know, we want it to be we want it all incorporated. It's going to kind of be like coarse cornmeal or sand. And that's what we're looking for. So just get that mixed in, work it through. The ghee makes it easier than butter. I'm sure if you bake, you've had to work, you know, butter into dough before, and you're doing that. So you're just working it through. You're just going to continue to kind of, with your fingertips, a little bit of squishing with your thumb to your fingers to break up the larger pieces. You're going to keep working it in. And we don't need to be perfect. But again, if you can get it down to a full, and I'm going to, for class, you know, I'm looking to kind of shorten things up a little bit. But we're just looking for it to be worked in and hydrated in, and everything's going to get mixed through really well. Now, again, soft squeeze with your thumb so that you're not squishing it into a ball. You're just breaking any larger clumps up. Kind of do a squish and slide motion as you do that. It's hard to explain, but you'll kind of get the feeling of it. And it's just, basically, it's kind of like running any large pieces so that they kind of grind against each other as you're doing it. And it's just working it in, working it in, working it in. So any questions at this point? Everybody keeping up? Everybody doing well? I know. It's, yeah. Everybody awake, looking forward for dinner? I mean, I know I am. So. Okay. So again, if I have a few pieces, but you can see it's pretty well sand. It's very few lumps in it. And that, so we're going to do that. Again, I don't worry about what's on my fingers because I get to add liquid here in a second. I can wash off my fingers as much, and they're going to get sticky again anyway. So I'm not concerned about it. So again, it says in the recipe to add the yogurt after the fact. When I wrote the recipe, I was kind of in a hurry, and I apologize. So I put a couple things out of order, but it'll still work if you follow it exactly as written, or if you, the way I'm showing you here, so it's not a problem. So we're going to take our yeast mixture, we're going to get that dumped in there, and this hopefully will be the right amount of water for this amount of this flour. Yes, we have a question.
Yeah, I think it's showing up in the chat maybe, but it says, when do we, oh, somebody, when do we cut up the chicken? Just kidding.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, so again, as you can see though, it comes together into a dough pretty well. It is a sticky dough. If it's overly sticky, this is a little too tacky. And again, you're gonna have to buy each individual bag, a type of flour, or type and bag of flour, you'll have to add a little bit here and there to get it. You're looking for a slightly sticky dough, not it sticks to your fingers to the point that you can't get it off sticky dough. So if that made sense. So as you do, you might want to work in a little bit of extra flour like I did, and I probably will work in just a little bit more, but we're going to give it a chance here in a second. But as long as it all comes together, then we've done well. So it's all come together. We are going to lightly dust our board here. Get my knife out of the way. And we're going to take our dough and plump it down onto our work surface. And we're going to put our flour out of the way for the moment. If I need it again, I'll get it in a moment. So turn it out and knead until it's smooth. Now it says it takes about 5 minutes. Now when kneading the dough, you're not being gentle with kneading. So as you see, I'm putting pressure down on it and squishing it, working it, and doing that. Again, I may have to add just a little bit. See, I'm leaving a little bit of pieces on the board, which means I may add just a little bit more flour. I don't make a mess. Okay. And so again, we're just going to do that. A little bit of flour on the board, a little bit into it. And we're just going to knead it. We're looking for a smooth, soft, elastic dough. Think pizza dough. If you've got it to pizza, you've done the right amount of work. And that's what we're looking for. So we're going to do that. And again, if you have to keep adding a little bit of flour, then by all means, see, I stick a little bit. That means that I need a little more flour, and to bring that over, just set it there so I can get to it easier without continuing to turn away, and do that. And we're going to knead that in. And again, the exact amounts of flour varies by bag. So I can't, I give you the best I can, and then you have to work it yourself, and you have to find what you like. So again, now that it's not sticking so much to my hands, a little bit more flour on the board, just a little bit. We're looking for smooth dough. As you can see, it's pretty darn smooth. It's looking nice. We could go for the full 5 minutes, but if you're comfortable with it, it's good enough. And so we're just gonna get a little bit more flour, just a little bit, make it easy, because it's a little bit still tacky, and that's fine. But we're going to get a little bit more kind of dusting on it. Give it one last. We're going to fold it into itself at the bottom, kind of like you would with pizza dough. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're not looking for the tight skin of a pizza dough, but we're going to do that. And we're going to just take any flour and pat it over the top and put it back into our bowl. Okay? So back into our bowl, get the flour. I'll put it over here so it's out of my way. And then all we need to do is cover this with a damp towel. So excuse me for 1 second. I don't have a damp towel. I have to dampen one. So I'm going to go over here to the sink really fast. Sorry, I'm off camera, but just a little bit of water, nothing extravagant. You don't want it dripping. So squeeze it out, and we're just going to lay it over the top, and we're going to put it somewhere warm to let it rise till we need it later. So we have our oven going. That's fine. There's going to be a little bit of heat up here, but it's not hot to the touch. So guess where's a perfect place to put that? That's a warm spot right near your oven. There you go. You just don't want it too hot. Okay, so we're going to do that. And I'm going to clean up my board so we can move on. So we've got our chicken marinating. We've got our bread rising and ready to go. And so we're going to go ahead and get our raita made. So raita. Every restaurant has raita, or Indian restaurant has raita. Raita, we were having a discussion about this actually earlier today or yesterday, we were talking about it of what is raita. Well, raita is a sauce, it's a dip, it's a condiment, it's a side, it's actually a salad. But if you get into technicalities by definition in the culinary world, it is a cold yogurt soup. And that is what raita is. Now, every culture in the world, or almost every culture in the world, has a cold yogurt soup, whether it be tzatziki or or a Russian cucumber salad or whatever. Raitas are made with all kinds of things. We're going to be using cucumber, of course. So I need to get just a regular mixing bowl. Put that out. And get my sieve out of the way. Sorry again for walking off camera. I apologize, but so we're going to do that. So we're going to use cucumber. Now, if you have, we're going to get our yogurt again because it's yogurt based. If you have a food processor with a grating disc like that, that's what I wrote in there. Hopefully you do have one of these. It saves a ton of time. I'm going to use that because I have it. But if you don't have one of those, you use a box grater. We all know what a standard box grater is. This is a standard box grater. Big teeth is the ones you want to use. If that's what you're using, don't worry, you'll have time to catch up with me because I'm going to talk about cucumbers as we're going. So go ahead and start grating straight into your bowl, and we can work around it or down onto your board. I suggest onto the board if just so that we can whisk the yogurt. I'll show you that in a second, but we're going to do that. Now, why are we using a English cucumber or a hothouse cucumber? Well, it's because two reasons. One is because hothouse cucumbers or English cucumbers, also known as Asian cucumbers, are burpless, which means they have a very thin skin and very few seeds, which is where you get the gas reactions from. So you want to use burpless. Now, Persian cucumbers, which we're also using in our chickpea recipe, are burpless, and you could use those. But what I have found is that a standard old English cucumber is about the right size for 2 cups of yogurt. So it's just easier if I say, go get one of these. One, it's done, simple. Instead of take a guess, could be 2, 3, 4, 5 Persian cucumbers. Depends on the size they are when you get them. The simple thing about it is you just need to take off the ends. I've already, they come in that plastic wrap. Why do they come in the plastic wrap? They come in the plastic wrap because the skin is thinner and they're not waxed. Regular cucumbers are dipped in wax for shipping to keep them from bruising and getting damaged in shipping. Now, the only way to it's fully edible wax, it's fine, but the only way to get rid of it is to skin it all off, gone, or boil it. And why are you boiling your cucumbers? So I'm not a fan of regular cucumbers. I will use Persians or English, or there's a few others out there, but that's what I use because they're ready to go in that plastic. That's what keeps them from getting bruised instead of wax. They're pre-washed before they're packaged, but if you don't trust it, take off the plastic, rinse it under water, give it a quick dry off, you're ready to go. Take off those ends and you're ready to go. And for a food processor, all you're really looking for is to make sure that it fits in this section, your feed tube. If it's small enough to go down the hole in one go, cool. But if not, just cut it there, which means that you're looking at about sure, that's good enough, right? So that's close enough. That's close enough. And we'll tuck that one in half because it's slightly longer than the others. I'm going to do this over here. I'm not moving the food processor onto the bench. But we just take 1 or 2, put it down in there. Make sure we lock. That one's just a hair long. Come on, lock down. It's not your problem. It's not because it's the length. I don't know what that's doing. I apologize, but I can always grate them anyway. There, that locked. simple, straightforward, really easy. And then we take those two smaller pieces, take at least one of them. Again, if you're using the box grater, it takes a little bit longer, but that's why I was sitting here talking. So we got that in there. Now, if you have any pieces left over, which you inevitably will, you're going to have a disc and maybe a little side piece. Just put them on your board, take a knife, and julienne them down into small pieces. And now you have grated. And there you go. So we've got our thing grating. If you're still grating, go right ahead, keep grating. I'm going to take the lid and this blade out of here. And while you're doing that, hopefully you guys are keeping up. We're going to take 2 cups of yogurt and we're going to put it in there. Now again, I used my half cup measuring cup for that earlier. So I'm going to put 2 cups of yogurt in there. That's half. So about 1. And a little bit because they weren't full, which means that you should have very little of your yogurt left. And that's why I asked for the amount that I asked for. So we're in there. Now, we're going to whisk this till it's nice and smooth. Why are we whisking it till it's smooth? Well, again, it's to incorporate any excess whey or liquid into it to make sure that there's no lumps or chunks or anything like that. And especially if you're using real Greek yogurt or full raw yogurt, which, if they're homemade, there's that chance that you might find that one little, it fermented but not in the right way spot. And so when you whisk, you can look for that. We're just, again, we're just whisking it till it's smooth and nicely incorporated. We're not looking for anything. We're not trying to make, whipped cream here. So nothing fancy. Just make sure it's nice and smooth, which that's good enough. And that's going to go in my dirt bowl over there. Simple enough. So we got that in there. So hopefully you guys are still chopping along if you need to. I'm giving you time because the easy stuff, we'll just dump those over there for the moment. Now, it says here to roast your spices, which we're going to skip for the class time. So I'm going to use ground, which is why I didn't tell you to make sure you had full, whole spices for any of this recipe. So we're going to skip that part, but we're going to the ground, non-reactive bowl, whisk until it's smooth, add the remaining ingredients. Well, in this case, we need a half teaspoon of cumin. Okay, now half teaspoon of cumin, whole seeds roasted, half teaspoon of cumin, you're fine. It's not a problem. So we're going to put in a half teaspoon of cumin into our bowl. About a half teaspoon of ground black pepper. So I'll do fresh ground. Should be good enough. We got that in there. Kosher salt to taste. Again, amount. All recipes should be to taste because everybody's taste buds are different. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put in a French pinch, which is all 4 fingers and a little bit of heaping. That's what I'm going to put in, and a little bit extra. That's about a half a teaspoon of kosher salt, the way I just did that, what's known as the French pinch. Which brings up the interesting point is that a lot of people think that when a recipe, especially when talking salt, think that that's a pinch of salt. That's a waste of time. So that's not a pinch. Use at least 2 fingers, 3 fingers, or a French pinch of 4. Now baking, not the same thing. Like I said, baking is chemistry, follow the recipes. I don't bake. It's too precise for me. I do it this way. It's much easier, and I can make good tasting food. I don't have to worry about the science behind making sure that every little molecule is exactly the amounts that it's supposed to be. So with that, and again, a juice of a lemon. So another lemon, same trick as before. Give it a quick roll and squeeze the juice. A little bit of yogurt on the side of my squeezer. Squeeze the juice in. 1 lemon adds a nice acidity to it, that, you know, and that wonderful freshness to the flavor. Also keeps the cucumber from turning color. So it's all good. And so we're just going to squeeze that in. Got our lemon juice in there. Oop, 1 seed, no problem. As I pulled it out, I dropped 1 seed into the bowl. I'm not going to worry about it. Now you could add a fresh green chili, like a little Thai bird's eye chili, which are the closest things we can get to the Indian heat of chilies here in the States. But I don't necessarily add it to Raita. I don't like it because Raita is being used to cool your palate from spicy foods, and adding a chili to it just kind of seems counterproductive to me. I like the flavor. I just don't see the point. And you could definitely add about 2 tablespoons of minced up coriander, fresh coriander or cilantro, which we'll talk about later, and or mint leaves to this as well. But again, I kind of like the freshness of the dish exactly as it is in that. So again, get out our microplane grater, and we need some more ginger, about 3/4 of an inch. Where did I set my ginger? Right there. So about 3/4 of an inch of ginger in there. Again, I hope I'm doing this in time that if anybody's using a box grater, I've allowed you guys to get caught up to me. So since my grating took, you know, about 25 seconds. So yeah, is anybody still grading, or is everybody caught up? Did everybody use a food processor? However you want to answer that. But does anybody need anything that you're falling behind on, or that? Huh?
Answer in the Q&A.
And answer in the Q&A for me, please. But just let me know if anybody's falling behind or if everybody's keeping up. So again, we're going to do about 3/4 of an inch. And that's good. So we're going to dump that in there. And then we have a couple of green onions. Now, the thing with the green onions is, you know, people will call them scallions. They're not necessarily scallions. Scallions are a specific type of onion that will never grow a bulb. And this one, as you see, is starting to form a bulb, which means it's not a scallion, it's a green onion. So most manufacturers here, growers in the United States, they just grow onions. This could turn into a red onion, a white onion, a yellow onion, a brown onion, however you want to word it, but this could turn into any of those. And they just pick them when they're young, and therefore they're a spring onion, a green onion, as opposed to, you know, a bulb onion, but they're of the same family. Just take off that, you know, take off the roots, take off any little woody bits at the very ends of the green leaves. So most people though have never bought a scallion because they don't normally grow scallions here in the United States. And that's fine. People consider them true green onions or spring onions. Sometimes they're called a Mexican onion, and they've got a larger bulb on them. They've just been grown a little bit longer. So there's that. So we're just going to slice these nice and thin, and we're just going to go all the way, whites and greens, whites, you know, all the way up. It doesn't, you know, no separation of the two. Nice thin slices, small pieces. It's a nice mild onion, so it adds that little bit of onioniness to the dish. It's a hard word to say when it's not even real. But you know, onion flavor, but mild and nice and fresh and very spring-like. So we're just going down here. We're just going to get down to the end. And if a couple pieces are larger than the others, I'm not concerned. Those are going to go in to our raita as well. One piece rolled off my board. And that's going to go in the raita as well. There's our green onions in there. Make sure, do I have everything now? Ginger, and then 1 to 3 cloves of garlic was the last thing on the list. So again, do you like garlic? Then use a lot of garlic. Do you not like garlic? Then don't use as much garlic. That's why I wrote 1 to 3. So I'll use 2 pretty good sized ones and a small one. And I'll just do that. And then again, same thing, microplane it in. Now, you can use pre-made garlic paste. 1 garlic clove is considered roughly a teaspoon. That's a pretty big clove of garlic to be a teaspoon, but that's what it's considered. So again, you'll have to play with the amount yourself, depending on how strong the garlic paste is. You can make it yourself with a blender or mixie. You just grind it up, that way. But so you can do that in advance, and a lot of Indian homes do that. They make it themselves, or they buy it. They also can buy ginger paste, which you could also make in advance. And keep around in the refrigerator. They'll also sell in many Indian markets garlic ginger paste. It's already mixed. So how do you translate, though, how many cloves of garlic and how many inches of ginger into it's already pureed mixed together? I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I don't buy it. I've never used it in that way. I just make my own stuff and keep them separate. That way I know what I'm using. So we're all good. So we've got our yogurt, we got our green onions, we got our cucumber ready to go in. We've got our ginger, our garlic, we've got our cumin powder, we've got our black pepper in there, we've got kosher salt, we got juice of a lemon. So the only thing we need to add now is our cucumber. All of it's just going to go in. And again, hopefully you guys have caught up. Did anybody respond on Q&A? No. Hi guys, am I talking to air? Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I asked for a response. I just want to make sure I'm not talking to air. That's really it. I'll give you a moment. Take the food processor out of the way. Then we're just going to fold all this through. Now, if you've been to, a lot of Indian restaurants and you've ordered raita, sometimes you get it and it's very, very watery. It's very thin. There's a good explanation for that I will give you right now, being in the back of a lot of Indian kitchens and watching them work or working in them in America. It's very simple. They'll make a batch of about twice this, amount, and then they'll add about 3 gallons of milk to it so that they can serve it to 3,000 people. Saves a ton of money and time. There you go. We have a question.
Well, actually, we had a question a while ago, but it was in the.
It was in chat. Okay.
Chat, so I didn't catch it. It was after, right? I think immediately after. When do we cut up the chicken? Just kidding. It says, but seriously, how much liquid to the flour? So this is a question from a while back.
Well, so originally, okay, I apologize. The question earlier, it came earlier, was how much water to the flour. I did 2/3 of a cup by what I wrote in my recipe for you guys. 2/3 of a cup was what I had in my measuring cup. Did the yeast know it? That's what I added. That's it. And then I added flour until it felt right. If it was too dry, add a couple tablespoons extra of water instead of more flour until it's the right consistency to you. Not too sticky, meaning can't come off your fingers, but not too dry that it doesn't stick to anything. So I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry it took so long to get to it.
Just remind them to ask questions.
Right. Right, and so just a reminder, questions to me need to go into the Q&A because they pop up for us to see and they stay there until we answer them. So please use the Q&A for questions directed to me. You guys can chat amongst yourselves and crack jokes about how I look and sound and talk and things like that. I don't mind. But anyway, we just folded that all together. So again, nice and thick, nice and creamy, lots of green, lots of cucumber in there, lots of green onion in there. And we're all set. And that is our raita. It was that easy. Simple, straightforward. You can cover this, put it in your refrigerator for a minimum of 30 minutes just to let the flavors meld. I am going to just go set it off to the side because I'm not concerned about it. So I'm going to just put it over off the side and get back to it when I need to. Actually, I'm just going to put it right up here, out of camera view. So we're going to do that. Okay? So we got that happening. We've got our whiter done. We've got our chicken has been marinating. We've got our dough rising. So at this point, our oven is preheated. So we're going to take our chicken. We're going to take a baking dish. For this, I don't have to go to the oven. I have a camera that I'm going to carry over to the oven later, so that you guys can see what I'm looking at. But for this, I'm just going to say, put it in oven. I think you can do that. But the point is, we're going to transfer this in and all of its marinade into this baking dish, into a baking dish, oven-proof baking dish. Simple. In. Get as much of that marinade in there as possible. Don't waste the flavor. If it's smaller than this, it's fine. If it's bigger than this, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. But what we're doing is we're going to cook this to 3/4 of the way done or slightly more. You can't hurt it this way. But like I said, this is going to solve us simmering this for 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 24 hours. There are tikka masala recipes that take 48 hours. And yes, the chicken is overcooked, but there's a bell curve. If you've ever, it's like if you cook the chicken, it's just right. Then you get to that right point. It's nice and moist, it's tender, it's beautiful, and then it kind of goes and it gets rubbery and chewy, and then it breaks, and it goes back the other way and it gets softer and softer, more tender, more juicy. The consistency does change though. It does become a little grainy. It becomes a little bit of stringiness in there, but it's perfectly tender and that. Indians are perfectly fine with overcooked chicken as long as it's tender and moist. And they have no issues with overcooking it. Same with lentils. They like lentils that are very mushy as opposed to al dente. So our chicken bowl goes out of the way for good. It's gone. And that's going to go into our 350-degree preheated oven, saving us time later. Boom, straight up, straightforward. Very easy, very straightforward. So, our bread is going to rise until we need it, which means until we get simmering on our tikka masala so that we have time to work on our naan, and we'll get it then. So right now, we're going to move on and we're going to get our chickpea dish together. This is the chakpata chana chat, right? Now chana is Bengal gram or chickpeas, garbanzo beans. I cannot find a translation for chakpata. I have no idea what it means. I never heard it in India. I've only seen it in print. So I'm sorry I don't have an answer of what that means. And chaat, of course, is street food or Indian snacks. So this is a snack. I called it a salad with air quotes around it, in my case, air quotes, because it's very much like a salad, and we're going to serve it as a salad, so it works. Now, I told you to go ahead and get a can of garbanzo beans. I just grabbed Simple Truth Organic. It was cheap. Yeah, I remembered this time. I normally use dried chickpeas that I soak overnight. I pick and rinse, and then I soak them overnight, minimum 8 hours. But for a cooking class where I couldn't tell you to do that in advance, and if I was doing a live in-person class, I would soak them and explain to you what I did while we were in class. In this case, pardon me, I just went ahead and said use a can. They'll work fine, and they're fine. I just think they're a little soft, in my opinion. So that's why I don't normally use canned chickpeas. But we're going to do that. So we're going to go ahead and warm up the chickpeas along with some spices and then let them cool back down. So I'm going to bring a burner up here onto my board so that I am under the camera instead of using the stove behind me. So we're going to put that on there. We're going to get a skillet on there. We're going to get a skillet on there. While we're doing that, again, you could use fresh green chili in this. It's in the options if you want some extra spice. In India, they would definitely, more than likely almost always use the green chili. But look, the thing about spicy food in India, spicy food in Thailand, spicy food in Mexico, pick any country that has spicy food. The thing about it is a couple things. One, they've grown up with spicier foods than we do. So their heat tolerances are higher than ours, just on a general basis. So what we would call medium or very low end of medium, they would consider that mild or very mild, depending on the person. Eating Indian food, Thai food, and all those things in the country that they exist in and where, where it's their daily meal, it's not a fire eating contest. This isn't like Britain where a Madras curry has to be the hottest thing you've ever eaten in your life. Because in India, they're not that hot. And on top of that, not every Indian likes green chilies, and not every Indian can handle spice. Pick any other culture, same thing. So make it as hot as you like and as mild as you like by altering the amounts of chili peppers and chili powders that are used and types thereof. So we're going to do that. But I'm not using the green chilies again because my wife here, she is not very tolerant of heat. And so she is not into spicy foods. So I alter for her. And but I write the recipes for low end of medium. That's what I write recipes for. So without adding anything extra, you should get about a low end of medium. You want it hotter, add some extra chilies or chili powder, depending. You could add either or to any dish. If you want it milder, cut back or don't add the chilies. In some cases, I think it's necessary to have the chilies, just at least a minimal amount for flavor, but not for the heat. So, but you're gonna have to play with that on your own, and I can't, I don't know your taste buds, so you'll have to work with that. But we're gonna just go ahead and open up our chickpeas can and drain it off so that we have our chickpeas ready. We're just gonna get that there. Nope, and I put my strainer over there. Right. So, sorry, my strainer's out of shot. So again, just our chickpeas ready to go. So we got our skillet ready. We haven't started heating it up yet because I want to talk a couple of things really fast. We're going to be using cumin powder. We already talked about cumin powder. So again, I buy whole spices and then I roast them in a dry pan till they're very fragrant, and then I grind them myself when I need them, or what I use the most of, so that I have it ready for myself. So we're using that. We'll get back to that one in a second. We're going to be using Kashmiri chili powder. Now, Kashmiri chili powder, as I said, Mirchi is a very hot chili powder, but Kashmiri chili powder, you don't need to read the words, it's a red chili powder. Kashmiri chili powder is considered mild. Now, again, remember that their heat tolerances are slightly higher than ours, so it might be a pretty medium heat for you, but the Kashmiri chilies are used mainly for color and a mild heat. So the best thing that people would use as a substitute would be like a hot Hungarian paprika, or 2 parts sweet paprika to 1 part cayenne. And that's about the heat level it is. So it is a milder chili. It's one of the few chilies in India that are grown for their mildness, as opposed to just being spicy like all the others. But so we're going to be using Kashmiri chili powder for that. Kosher salt, and that. We just go ahead and get this so that we can get it cooled so it's not a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and get the heat going on our thing. I'm just going to turn it up to about a medium-high flame and start that warming up until I feel some decent heat coming off the bottom. Then I'm going to add oil. It's just canola oil. In my case, you can use any vegetable oil, canola oil, avocado oil, grapeseed oil, safflower, sunflower, any of those oils will work fine. You could use olive oil, but olive oil has a distinct flavor. So it's not something I normally use. I use more neutral flavor oils for Indian cuisine and other cuisines for that. But anyway, we're just going to add in our cooking oil, a couple tablespoons, or a tablespoon-ish is what I meant to say. We're just going to get that in there. We're looking for it to shimmer, which I don't think I can show you on camera. But what we're looking for is that when you kind of tilt it away from you, as it runs away, it's going to look like little ripples, and that's shimmering oil. And we're just going to spray it around and look for that shimmering. And when it's there, we're just about there, so we're going to go with that. And we're going to add in our cumin. Again, a half a teaspoon. Half a teaspoon of cumin. We're going to add in our half a teaspoon of Kashmiri chili powder. I grind my own, so there's a little bit of larger pieces in mine. We're going to add that, and we're going to add kosher salt, and about a half a teaspoon. So we're there, and then we're going to dump in our chickpeas. We're going to give it a stir. I'm going to reduce my heat down. And all we're doing is warming the chickpeas through and getting those spices coated over the top. And that's all we're basically doing. It's very fragrant. And that's going to boost those flavors, get it into the oil. And we're going to, and that's all we have to do. I didn't saute the spices for 30 seconds ahead of time because I had left them on the heat while I was measuring them out. So, but you could just saute them for about 30 seconds. But these just basically need to be warmed through because they'll accept flavors better. And that's really all we're doing. And you see there is some spices collecting on and some color from the chili powder and the cumin collecting on the chickpeas. So again, a good silicone spatula, get that oil up off the bottom so that it gets onto the chickpeas, gets a little bit of that on there. And we're just going to stir that around. Again, about a minute or so just to warm them through. Nothing fancy. I'm going to turn off the heat. And I'm going to stir until I don't hear any sizzle. Because then we're going to let it set aside while we make the rest of the dish. And work it out that way. So until I don't hear any sizzle, I'll keep stirring. And then I'm going to put it behind me on the trivet. Very simple, very straightforward. It also gets rid of some of the liquid is another thing that it's doing while we're doing this part is that it's getting some of that liquid out of them and evaporating so any extra wetness will be gone and replacing it with flavor. I don't hear any more severe sizzling, so I'm going to just put it on a trivet behind me. And then we can work on the rest of the dish. I have lost my towel. I'll put my burner back away until we need it again. Okay, get that out of my way. So now we're going to chop our veggies for this. Now it may seem strange that we're working on all this stuff when we have all this gravy to make later, but you'll see how easy it works. Hopefully you have a blender available that I asked you to have because that's imperative to making Indian gravies is having a blender. So it's so simple. What we're basically going to do is we're just going to chop up our vegetables and toss them into a mixing bowl. I'm going to pull out a glass bowl for this, just because it'll look pretty. Instead of all the silver bowls I've been using. And I'm going to use that. So, we need 2 Roma tomatoes. So, 2 Roma tomatoes. All we're going to do is chop them in half first. And then we're going to take out the stem by cutting a V. Stem is out. Check your other one. A little bit of a V. Stem is out. Okay. Same thing. Be careful about when you're cutting that V. Don't go too deep, and make sure your fingers aren't in the way if you do. I have very sharp knives. This has a little bit of discoloration right there, so I'm going to just take that little piece off, and we're not going to do anything there. Now, seeded, all you have to do is dig your finger in and scrape out the seeds, because you don't want too much liquid. And seeds add bitterness to tomato. These are pretty solid without a lot of liquid in there, so I'm not getting too much out of them. But we just want to make sure that we just are not adding bitterness from the seeds, and we're not adding a whole lot of liquid to the dish. If you miss some of it, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so we're going to just do that, and then we're going to dice them up. Okay, small chopped, diced, however you want to do it. In this case, I'm going to go into about 4 pieces, and then I'm just going to slice through. And those are good sized pieces for me. For what I'm doing, go in the bowl. Again. No fanciness here. Perfection is not required. The thing about perfection in food is if you're going to sell it, then you should strive for as much perfection in the appearance as you can. If you're going to be eating it, you strive for flavor, not appearance. Right? So don't worry about everything being exactly the same size, exactly cut. Don't need to show off your knife skills. It doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. So again, chunks of tomato, straightforward, all inside. So we're going to do that. And then we need a Persian cucumber. So again, it's burpless. I washed it. It's no problems. So I'm just going to take off the ends. Okay. I'm going to chop it in half. And then I'm going to chop it in half so that I have flats to work with. Right? And then I'm going to just take this into 3 pieces. And again, chunk it up into pieces that are similar in size to my tomatoes. Perfection, again, is not required. These are thinner at this end, so I'm just going to go ahead and chop that in half instead of 3. And that goes in the bowl with the tomatoes. And half the small red onion. Now, a small red onion should be about 4 ounces and should fit in the palm of your hand, just like that. That's a small onion, okay? So it should be about 4 ounces. It's not going to be exact, just find one about that, but it should fit in the palm of your hand. I do realize that people's hand sizes are slightly different, but go for it about, that's a small onion. We're going to use half of this. Very simply, we're going to take off the flower end, leaving the roots intact. We're going to go ahead, I just look for it so that if this is like elongated, the circle in the center, I try to so that I can bisect it, and then just cut down through in half. Half of that is what we're going to use. We're going to take off the paper. If you take off one thin layer of the red onion, not a problem. If that's the easiest, fastest way to get it cleaned off. Okay, now I'm going to show you the dicing process. So once you've got to this works for any onion. You're going to take your knife and you're going to go through it once or twice this direction. Just make sure your fingers are out of the way. Go through to about a finger width from the end, the root end. And then you're going to go down like this, and you're going to do the same thing, small pieces. Again, perfection is not required. You're going to go about a finger's width from the root end, just like that. Then you're going to turn it that way, and then you're going to run your knife down, bigger or smaller, your choice. We're going to do that. It's going to go in there as well. And then this last little piece, I'm just going to kind of do this to run around and get off those last little bits. And there's our onion. Simple, straightforward. Get that in the bowl. Lauren just commented that it looked so pretty. So we got that in there. We got that in there. Like that. Okay, so I told you we talked about coriander, fresh coriander or cilantro. Now, we call it cilantro here in the United States. Why? Because we're more Hispanic centric, right? We base more of our stuff on Mexican because we're connected to Mexico. So cilantro is fresh coriander. Fresh coriander is what the rest of the world calls it. Now, that doesn't speak Spanish, obviously. Fresh coriander is some people's greatest food and other people's most hated nightmare. It's my most hated nightmare. I despise the stuff. It's a grotesque weed that should be eradicated from this planet. I'm not joking. The only downside to that would be is it would get rid of coriander seed. And I love coriander seed. Tastes totally different. So the problem is that I can't stand the stuff. Lauren, on the other hand, loves the stuff. So I make foods where I'll add it, I'll cook with it, I'll garnish with it. I don't eat it. Now, why do some people love it? Why do some people hate it? Well, love, I don't know. That's a whole other, I don't have an answer for that. But why do people hate it? Well, there are three answers of why people don't like cilantro that are accepted in the culinary and school world, I guess would be a way, education world. The first reason that people don't like it is that Anglos didn't grow up with it, so they don't like it. That's stupid. Number one, cilantro or fresh coriander comes from the Mediterranean. So yes, Anglos grew up with it. And lots of Anglos love cilantro. So that's just dumb. Moving on. Second reason that people don't like it is that there is a gene. If they have that gene, then they're susceptible to the flavor and aroma compounds, which are modified fatty acids known as aldehydes. These aldehydes on a molecular level are almost identical, molecule by molecule, to lots of chemicals, poisons, and bug excretions, like stink bug juice. And if you have that gene, then you are very sensitive to these aldehydes, and therefore it's just overpowering and you don't like the flavor. I don't have this gene. I've been tested. Not because I wanted to know if I had the gene, but because I'm adopted. Point is, though, is that the company that found the gene was who did my test. They asked if I wanted to know. I said, yeah, I don't have it. Which means that I fall into approximately half of the 14% of the world's population that doesn't like cilantro. And that is that we didn't like it the first time we tasted it. What that means is that the first time that you taste a food, no matter what it is, your brain has to compare it to known foods that you've already had so it can develop a flavor profile for it. We only have the taste buds that we have, millions of food combination flavors, yet we only taste basically 5 flavors. How do we taste all these differences? Our brain has to figure that out for us. It's doing that for 2 reasons, though. Not only to tell you what it tastes like, but also it's deciding, is it good for you or bad for you? Nourishment or poison? Fight or flight would be another way of saying it, but in the more physical sense. Well, I was a terrible, terrible child. I have no qualms in admitting that. And so the first time I tasted cilantro, it tasted like Dawn liquid soap. I was that bad of a child that I can tell you what brand of soap it tastes like. Forevermore, it will taste like Dawn liquid soap. That is all it will ever taste like to me. And the reason I go on this rant and the reason I went on this whole thing is to tell you this very simply. If you love cilantro, by all means, add it. At this point, you would add it to your salad. I will add it later for Lauren, but I'm going to leave it out so that I can serve some for myself later. If you don't like it, I'm right there with you. And if you like it and you have friends that don't like it, they tell you they don't like it, and you keep doing that wonderful thing where you're like, yeah, well, I'll just use it. They'll learn to like it. No, we won't. We won't. You're torturing your friends. Please don't torture your friends with your food. If they say they don't like it, don't serve it to them, please. That's all I'm asking it. That's why I went through this whole thing. So there you go. I will add this later and to the salad because I do have it, but I'm not going to add it now. So we've got that. We got a juice of half a lemon. So once more, half of a lemon. Put our juicer back. This one is just on the edge of being too big for this one. Juice of one lemon goes in. Or half a lemon, sorry. I don't need to take that out because that's it I'm using for that. So that goes over there. Juice of half a lemon. Now, our chickpeas have cooled enough. Scrape out any extra oil. That's part of the dressing, so to speak. So we're just going to add that in there. And you know, I didn't talk about chaat masala. And I forgot to add because I was going to talk about it and I didn't add it to the saute. It's fine though, it'll still taste good. So I'm going to get the pan out of the way. Chaat masala. Many people call chaat masala Indian crack. Not a joke. It's a very, very flavor-inducing flavor. Hopefully you got some or you've had some, and so you'll know what I mean. It has a really distinct twang and sour bite to it, just this wonderful flavor to it that is unique to chaat masala. Masala, again, being spice or blend of spices. So this is a spice blend for chaat, street foods, snacks. It's used in everything from burgers, so to speak, to trail mixes, raitas, you name it, it's used for it. What gives it its unique flavor, one main ingredient is black salt. Black salt is from the same region under the Himalayas as Himalayan pink salt, but it's very sulfurous, and it has a blue, gray, black color to it depending on how condensed it is, but it has a wonderful sulfur aroma and flavor to it. And so that's what gives it its big twang, but there's lots of flavors and everybody's recipe is different. So mine is homemade, but a purchased one is fine. So we're just going to go ahead and add a half a teaspoon of chaat masala to that. I should have added it when I sauteed. I was going to tell you about it and then I got sidetracked, so I apologize. So we got all that in there. We got our lemon in there. The last thing we need to do is tamarind concentrate. You can see I've used this, it's got some streaks where I spilled. But the point is that this is concentrate. It's very thick. It's very molasses-like in its consistency. Tamarind, of course, is a fruit that looks like a big peanut, grows on a tree. You can buy it fresh, you can buy it ground, you can buy it in pastes and so forth. But I buy it in concentrates because it lasts longer, it's shelf stable for a very long time, and it's easier to work with because all the other stuff you have to either boil it with water or mix it with water, strain it, and all those different things. So this works really well. So we'll do that. And again, just a half teaspoon, I'm going to eyeball this. Very thick. It doesn't take much. It's very strong. It's got a sweet tang to it. So we're just going to put that there. We're going to put that in, and we're going to give that a mix. Toss all that together. Just turn it through until you don't see big dark splotches of the tamarind is basically all you're looking for. And again, very simple, very straightforward, very easy. And you can see why it's like a salad. And as the lemon juice gets on there, it'll thin out that tamarind and help it with like a dressing. And that, if you had the coriander, of course, it would have those leaves in it, and which it adds that wonderful green. I do like the look of it. I would use parsley in its place if you want to use it. But again, and I probably could have used that for tonight. However, because Lauren gets to partake of this, and like I said, she loves cilantro, I was polite enough to go ahead and buy some for her, so I will mix it in. So there's that. Again, simple, straightforward. It's mixed, it's coated. Now it just needs to sit off either in the fridge or on a counter for a bit to meld its flavors. And that's all it's going to do. The salt's going to pull out some of the tomato juice and some of the flavor of the chickpeas and the cucumber and the onion, and it's all going to meld together. And it's going to help with that tamarind and all that stuff. So that's done. It's a very simple dish. This would be served as a side dish, again, almost like a salad. It would also be served in a cone of paper with some chutneys to spread on top, like extra dressing, so to speak, as just almost like a fresh trail mix, almost kind of a thing. So it's served in lots of different ways. It is also can be used in a wrap with some meat, almost like a gyro or something like that. It's very versatile. But so I'm going to put this off to the side, and we're going to get on to our other stuff. So now, what do we got to do? Well, we've got to get now to our gravy. So our stuff has been over there. It's baking in the oven. It's doing what it's doing. Making the gravy is so simple. It's ridiculous because you don't have fancy knife skills needed. You don't need anything. You've got a blender. Does it all for you. It's great. Gotta love that. So we got all that. If you're following again, I did 350, 325 is what I wrote in the thing. Either's gonna work and it's fine. It's not a problem. It says 15 to 20 minutes. Again, I told you you can't really overcook it. So however long it's been in there, it's been in there. And while we get started, it's gonna stay in there. I'm not concerned about it. I'm gonna leave the oven on because we need it for our naan anyway. So why let it start cooling back down? Let it keep its heat, and then we'll turn it up once we pull the chicken out. So we'll do that. What are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is tell you about this machine right here, which is, I'm not going to bring it forward any further, so I apologize. I hope you can see it. This is known as a mixie. I'm not trying to sell this to you. I'm just explaining what this is. These are found in almost every modern Indian household, and restaurants, Indian restaurants have these of varying makes and models, sizes included, but they're all about this size usually. It's just a very powerful mixer. It comes with 3 different size cups. I have the large one out here. It's just a very powerful blender. If you have a Neutrogena, a Ninja Bullet, pick one, a Waring, if you have a good blender, it'll work just fine. The thing is, again, it's just a very powerful motor. It's all stainless steel cups, which is why I love the thing. I own quite a few of these things because I teach classes. So I have a couple that travel with me so I can use multiples in classes. I have one that stays here at home. So again, just great tools. I use them to grind my spices. I use them to puree. You can use them to crush ice. You can use them to make peanut butter. Be careful. You got to make sure you don't overload it and stuff. You can also use it to grind meat as long as it's fat-free, like cut off as much meat and fat as you possibly can, but it will grind it. It is technically known as a chopper grinder mixer. Indians call it a mixie. Much easier. So we're going to use that as our thing. To start with the very first one, to show you what that is, I've got a medium red onion, about the size of a baseball. About the size of a baseball. Now, I'm going to show you how hard this is for our prep work. Okay? Very, very hard. We take off the flower end. We're going to take off the root end. We're going to cut it in half. We're going to take off the paper. Just like that. We're going to put it on the board. We're going to chop it in half. 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 In other words, we just chop an onion into eighths. And then the hard work starts. There you go. We just prepped our onion besides running it in the machine. Hope that wasn't too hard for everybody. Point is, we're going to put it in there. I'll run it here in a second because it's going to get loud. So I apologize. Something just decided I hit the counter too hard. Okay, no problems. Just stay. Okay, so it's going to get loud. I apologize in advance, but I'll stand back from it as far as I can. We're going to let it go for about 35, 40 seconds. About 35. We're going to let it go for about 35, 40 seconds just to turn it into baby food. Okay, this is our first ingredient. So again, yep, because it's a red onion, it's pink. So that's our first step. We're going to set that there. Ready? Move my board over. Bring my burner back up. Bring out a big pot. Turn on the heat. You get a big old pot. Just like that. We're going to heat some ghee in the pot. Tell the chimmers. It's about a quarter cup. About a quarter cup again. So, oh, there's a quarter cup. So, hey, that worked out. So, we'll set that in there, let it melt out of the bottom for a second. Loosen up a little bit. That way I can get it off my measuring cup. Just like that. Okay, so we got a quarter cup of ghee going in. Very buttery flavor and aroma. Gotta love that. Melting it, getting it going. So this is so easy to do, you know, as far as the prep work goes, that we can do this in exactly the real time that I'm showing you because we have moments. So we're just getting that hot. I'm starting to see some ripples again. I don't think you can see this on camera, but I got some ripples going in the bottom. I'm going to pour this in, and I'm just going to get a spatula. I'm going to pour it away from myself because it is going to splatter a little bit from the sizzles. I don't need to rinse out my blender, but I'm just going to take all that in there and start simmering this and sauteing this down. We want to reduce the liquid by about half, so it's going to take a bit, okay? So we're going to stir that in. We want to, this is part of that condensing of flavors, and as I said, they'll do the tomato, you know, they'll do tomatoes partially in advance sometimes. Some people will, not everyone, but they're going to do that. So I got this over medium-high heat. I'm just going to let that reduce down by half, okay? So I'm going to set that off to the side, but I'm going to take my blender, again, you don't have to wash it out. I'm going to reduce it just a little bit. Stir it every now and then, but at the beginning we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to add pureed tomato. So again, Roma tomatoes, I got 5 of them here. Again, simplistic. In half, take out that core, that V, as I did before. And into about 8 total. So that's it. So we're going to do that with all of our tomatoes. And they're going to go in the same blender. You don't need to rinse it out. The tomatoes will do that for you. So, you know, why waste time doing that? So you could, instead of doing the V thing, you could just chop off the first bit of the tomato if you really wanted to. It's up to you how much of it you want to save and how much of it you don't want to, or how much you care about using every last little piece. You can also use a tomato shark, which is a little tool that a lot of restaurants have, which will dig out that core without chopping the tomato at all. Now, in this case, we want the bitterness. I want the bitterness, but you don't have to. It does in the recipe say to seed them, but I actually want a little bit of bitter tonight, my personal preference. So it just shows that you don't have to seed if you don't want to. But again, your choice. So we're just going to chunk up the rest of our last 2 tomatoes. I'm going to give that a quick stir. Thinking opposite here. Happens. Okay, so our tomatoes are in. Same thing, we're going to put it on the blender, we're going to puree it, and we're going to turn it into puree. It's going to turn very pink, light red because of the air that it's incorporating into it when it purees. Again, 35 to a minute, depends on how much you want to do. So again, just let that sit for a moment while we're reducing down. So that's got another moment or so to go. Give me 1 second, I'm going to step out of camera. So again, we're looking for this to have reduced by about half. We got another 35, 40 seconds to go, depending on your heat, depending on what's happening. But again, we're just looking for, now all that ghee has soaked into the onions themselves, and so it doesn't look oily anymore. It doesn't look like there's the oil in there. Is my light off angle? Well, you can see fine in the camera, correct? Okay, sorry. Just looks a little shaded to me up here. Anyway. So, again, we're just mixing it down, about half. When I say about, literally about. You don't have to be precise. If you get it close, you're close. If you get it a little over more than half, it's just more condensing of flavors. So don't worry about it. But what I'm just going to take it a guess. I'm going to give it just one more moment. And the more you stir at this point, the more it's going to release that liquid. It's going to evaporate and get, have surface area to evaporate. So we do that. Okay? So I'm going to call it good. We're going to add our pureed tomato now. Again, don't clean out your blender. And again, reduce by half. So we got a little bit of time. So it's going to cool your pan down quite a bit really fast. Got a piece that didn't get all the way. Put that back in the blender. So again, we're just going to do it that. Any big chunks of tomato, if you see them, if you didn't let it go for long enough, pull them out, throw them back in the blender because we're going to blend here again in a second. So it's not a big deal. But again, chunks of tomato. If you want an ultra smooth, blend that, blend that, blend that. And even at the stage before we add the chicken and the marinade in, you could even use a immersion blender or a stick blender and puree it even more Again, restaurants love Uber Smooth, but they're using a house gravy, which means they call it ketchup usually, which is just the red sauce base. And they use that as a base gravy for all red dishes. So, and it's made very, very smooth so that they can add the chunkiness to it. But at home, smooth is to each person's decision. So we're going to do that. So, bowl out of the way. Tomato cores in the trash. We got about a 2-inch piece of carrot. Don't need to peel it, just make sure it was washed, which mine was. We'll take off the little woody bit and about 2-inch piece. That looks about right. Now I told you we'd say how this was kind of British. Well, this is kind of part of the British thing, is that they add the carrot in to add some sweetness, and they add the carrot in for color as well. So it's just something that they've done. It's not necessarily traditionally Indian. But again, in Delhi, they've kind of brought it back. So that's at a pretty high simmer. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit so that I have not so much bubbling going on. Yeah, and I tossed the carrot in the blender. Sorry, I'll put it right there, hopefully. But they add that to that, again, for a little bit of color and a little bit of flavor, sweetness, underlying sweetness is why they're adding it, which is something that, British restaurant gravies use a lot of carrot and a lot of bell pepper. So we're going to use half of a red bell pepper, which is the same basic thing. They're adding it for flavor. They're adding it for color. So again, nothing spectacular here. We're just going to pull out the seeds. If a few get in, and then again, just chunk it up. It's not a problem. Now, depending on your blender, depending on how dry your red pepper is, you may need to add a little bit of water to this, but we'll give it a try at first and see how it goes before we do that, before I add any water to it. And we're just going to puree it. Again, I'll keep playing with my heat because I don't want it bubbling and doing volcanic little balls, if you get my drift, because it splatters, and I just don't want that happening while I'm cooking. So I'm just turning it down. But once I can stand here and stir more frequently, it's not going to be a problem. So again, I'm going to put the blender on with the carrot and the bell pepper in there. Get to that in just a second. So again, it's going to get a little loud. So it seemed to do pretty well. It had some liquid from the onion, it had some liquid from the tomatoes in there. So it seemed to do pretty well. Yep, we got a nice puree. So that's going to go in there as well. As soon as the tomatoes get down to half their liquid. We got a little bit of time. While that's reducing down, before we add that, we'll get our spices together for what we're going to add to the gravy. Give that a quick stir. Cutting board and knife can go away for now. Actually, for the rest of it, that's it. That was it until I do some coriander at the end. So we're going to just set that there. So again, we're going to let that reduce down. I'm going to just do a little bit of cleaning, getting stuff out of my way. And ready for what we need. Okay, so I'm going to grab a little tiny bowl or ramekin, whichever, whatever you have. You don't need to do this, but since we have a couple of moments. So what is going to happen is next we're going to be adding cardamom and cloves, and they're whole pods. ginger garlic paste, which, again, we're going to just grate that, which we have a moment to do. So at this point, what we need to do is, so we got green cardamom cloves, or pods, green cardamom pods, and I believe I wrote 5. Yes, 5. We're just going to put 5 of them whole in a bowl. And then we got some whole cloves, which are in my other salad de bain. And we have 3 whole cloves. Is what's going to go in. Okay, and that's going to add a little bit. We're going to leave them whole. They're just going to boil into the gravy to add some undertone and again accentuate those flavors. While we have that there, we're going to go ahead and grate our ginger and garlic into that bowl because we have that time while this is reducing down. So again, this is why this works, so well as far as giving you time while things are doing one part, you have the opportunity to work on another part. So for the gravy, we have a 1/2-inch piece is what I wrote. So again, a 1/2-inch piece, which is going to be basically this whole nub right here. I'm just going to grate all that into the bowl. And that's going to go in with the cloves and the green cardamom at the same time, along with our garlic. So this gives us time to, do this work while that's happening, while that's reducing down. And the longer that reduces, the more flavor it's going to have. And so that's a good thing. So it's no problems. So again, I'm just grating that nub off so that we have it for our gravy. Again, think of all the potential flavors that you're adding. The thing about Indian cuisine is, in reality, is it's all about layering of flavors. Add one thing, condense. Add next thing, condense. Add these flavors. Saute for a bit. Add these flavors. And the reason that most people who try to recreate Indian food at home don't succeed very well is because they rely on recipes that say use curry powder. There's nothing wrong with curry powder. I make curry powder. But curry powder is a flat flavor, meaning it all gets added at the same time, to the dish, and it all cooks the same length of time. There's no layering. So you've lost a lot of that layering, let alone the fact that all curry powder, that curry powder, if you're using the same curry powder, tastes exactly the same as the last time you used it. And each dish should have its own flavor. So, you want to be able to layer those flavors in, and that's what this is doing. Now, I am not going to condense. When I say condense down by half, that's good enough. And for most tikka masala recipes, that's fine. We got another couple of minutes on this. So we have time to do our garlic. But that's where that already reduced down additional paste comes in. That we're using tomato paste. They would have made a puree and almost turned it into what we call tomato paste. It adds that depth flavor. It adds that really strong flavor. So they're going to do that. So they would do that. Now, we got 4 cloves of garlic. Again, I got a few small ones in there, so I got 5 here. But we're just going to grate that into the bowl as well. And this is going to be ready for us to add in. I know this seems like, ooh, look, we're simmering. But, again, think of the food, smell the flavors. And while we're doing this a little bit, this gives me a chance to answer any questions you guys may have. So feel free to ask anything about this or anything else for that matter in the Q&A so that we see them and that we can answer them. But, if you guys got anything, let me know. I hope most of you are cooking along. I know that you don't have to. Now, so as I said at the beginning, while I'm thinking of it, we had a problem. For some reason, it was conflicting the recording. So it's going to be the Zoom recording. It's not going to be at the full resolution. I apologize. But I will still load it over to my hidden YouTube page and give you guys, which only those that paid for the class get the link to that, to the recording. I will put it over there. You can go back and watch it anytime you want. So, but that's how that's going to work. And give me, 24-ish hours to get it posted up there. It takes time for it to download and that stuff. So, just give me a little bit of time, but I will get it over there for you, and you'll have access to it at the time. So our ginger and garlic is pasted into the bowl. Our whole spices that are going to go into the dish are ready to go. Our tomato has reduced down, not quite half, but I can now turn up my heat a little bit because I can stand here and stir. And that's the thing, is that, time management is just about, you can play with the heat a little bit as long as it's not overgoing, and it'll be fine. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and dump in my puree, even though I haven't quite gone to half, just because we're going to speed this up a little bit. So this is our carrot and our bell pepper going in, and we're done with that. And that's going to go in. So again, that's going to add red coloring, but it's also going to add a chili flavor undertone, because bell peppers are capsicums, which is what all chili peppers are. So it adds an underlying chili flavor. It boosts up the flavor, and like I said, those are two ingredients that are more on the British scale of things, that have returned to India in the way that recipes are made. And so this is done in that way. But it shouldn't be overpowering, and that's the thing, is that don't worry about that. But it just adds a kick of flavor to it. And again, the onion kind of or the carrot kind of balances it out by adding a little bit of sweetness. So gives it a more complex flavor profile. So again, we're just going to let this go, and again, get it ready to go. And in a moment, then we'll go back to making our bread. And then it'll be time to eat. I hope you guys are excited. And again, has anybody responded to any question I've asked them? Okay, so I'm going to take this moment to once again plead. Somebody type something in Q&A. I'm not talking to air, right? Please help me. It's still going out, right? I hope you guys are all still there. Hello?
It still shows participants, so.
Okay, and you're still seeing camera going. You're still seeing me move. Okay, we haven't locked up, have we? Has anybody typed anything, even in chat?
No.
Somebody type something so that we know we haven't locked up.
Oh, okay, I finally got you are good.
Okay, thank you.
Ivan, you're our best friend.
Yes, thank you, Ivan. I appreciate it. Just again, it's kind of strange. I've asked for a couple of responses and got nothing. So I'm just hoping I wasn't talking to nobody, and that I've been sitting up here cooking away and you all had lost me. So again, if you guys have any questions, this is the slow point. So if you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and feel free to ask.
Oh yeah, Ivan is busy chopping and mixing, etc. So he is cooking along, which is why he didn't.
Okay, well, and I appreciate that, and I understand. So thank you, Ivan. You're keeping up well, Ivan, and you can respond a little bit later. Keep chopping and doing your thing. So. When you get to a stopping point, let me know. So again, we're reducing down, we're reducing down. This gives you guys the time to catch up. And again, ask questions if you can. But I think I've covered most everything that I wanted to cover. We've talked about ingredients. We've talked about the origins of tikka masala and the lies of the origins of tikka masala. Um, Talked about its differences. We made our salad. We made our raita. We got our bread rising. I'm starting to sweat over the heat. Give me a second.
Bill says everything is doing great. So tomato paste soon?
Yes.
Mark, and how do you know if you could?
Well, okay. So the question is tomato paste soon or not? Yes. Tomato paste will go in with the ginger, garlic, and the whole spices that I've done in this bowl waiting for us. Tomato paste will go in at the same time. As for your question of how do you know if it's ghee or water, well, ghee will separate out and kind of it'll have a literal oil look to it. It'll push off to the side. And if you really get down, it's known as, Indians will call that masala in. I know that's a weird word, but if it's properly cooked, which if you go way down and really go down, it'll start separating out the oil. And it looks like oil, not water. So you'll see that you can't, you're not having an issue at this point. I guarantee that you haven't, that the ghee is making it look that wet. I guarantee it isn't. So, but again, we're doing fine. So, any other questions? Hope that answered your question, Bill. It was Bill, correct? Okay. So I hope that answered your question, Bill. Okay. So I do have a China class, introducing Chinese class coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll be making breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we're making full meals to make a giant feast. So, but you'll have leftovers, and they all work well as leftovers, so it'll be good there. But we're going to do that. I'm writing more classes. I'm working on just figuring out which recipes I can do in this format, because it's a little bit different than when I have a live class. Again, if some of you have been to some of my live classes in person, where you guys are doing the hands-on work, I'm helping and talking and doing all this stuff, and it's a little bit different of a format. It gives me a better opportunity to gauge how things are moving, and I can help get timing. This way, with this, I have to kind of gauge how this is all going to work and give you guys time to chop, and then which I can't see it. So I have to kind of balance the recipes and try to make it work. But I am working on more classes. I'm working on an East or a South Indian korma. It will be one of the main dishes in it. And trying to figure out what will work best with that, again, with class time and this format. If you guys have any desires of what kind of classes you want to do, let me know. I also am doing a private virtual class coming up for some of you that are here tonight. Again, if you're interested, tell your friends. I am willing to do private classes for you. We just discuss it online. And we have a question.
Just Bill wants to take a spice class, so.
Okay, well, Bill, the spice class I did earlier this year was my first foray into the online stuff. And I have to be honest, because of the cost of it, it didn't do all that great because of the pandemic and so forth, with lack of income for a lot of people. I will look into doing another one either near the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, and then we will have to I will have to decide if I'm going to do where I ship you the spices, the book, and all the stuff like I did the first time, or if I do it really cheap and just talk to you. And then if you want to buy the book and stuff separately, I'll ship it to you. But I have to make that decision. Like I said, because of the cost of the class, it's over $50 worth of stuff, plus shipping and handling, that I have to ship out to you for the class. So the class is $79. And it's what it costs me to put it on and make just a little bit of money per person. And I'm talking a little bit. So but I have to figure that out and see how many people are interested. I've got a few people that have questioned, and and I'm not dismissing it. I just have to figure out the logistics of if it will work. Okay? Okay, so we'll be working on it. Okay, so we're about halfway here. We've reduced down quite a bit. As you see, it's not pouring into the center. I hope you guys can see that as I pull the spatula through. That's close enough. Again, you could go a little bit longer. It's not the end of the world, but that's given us time to chat and talk, and we still have time to go on. So our ginger, our garlic, and the whole cloves and whole cardamom pods, that's what is going in now. And then our tomato paste is also going to go in at this moment. Okay, so we're just going to stir that through really fast. Okay, that's stirred in. And then for our tomato paste, I just want to double check if I'm not forgetting anything. So 2 tablespoons. Now, if you buy it in these tubes, which you can get at different places, AJ's Fine Foods sells them. Many grocery stores sell them. Trader Joe's sells them. It's great because they stay in your fridge and they're great. So we need 2 tablespoons, which is about what I had left in this tube. So I'm just going to finish it off. That's my tomato paste, and that's in there now. So again, stir that through. I'm just finishing off that tomato paste, that tube. If I'm a little over, I'm a little over. If I'm a little under, I'm a little under. So again, got little pieces of carrot in there, got little pieces of tomato in there. Again, just adds a little bit of texture to the gravy, which I'm not opposed to. Restaurants would be opposed to. Home cooks are not opposed to it. It's all that. That is also going to add a whole lot of red, because the deep red of tomato paste condensed down tomatoes, that also adds red, which is another reason that traditional homemade tikka masalas, butter chickens, and stuff with the red gravy are usually more orange than they are red. Restaurants are typically more red because, again, especially British, because they add carrots, they add red bell pepper, they'll add tomato paste to redden it up. They also add a lot of food colorings to lots of their foods. In India, they feel that a rainbow of colors on the table is more important than all natural foods. So they color it up a lot. You'd be surprised how many big old gallon jugs of different colors there are in the back of an Indian restaurant kitchen. And they use them every night in many, many things. So you'd be surprised. And again, if you're, you can ask about that and say you don't want it. You probably can't, because they make a lot of stuff in advance. But ask them if you're concerned about it. But I will be honest, from all the research I've done, as long as they're using FDA approved colorings, the health risk is very minimal. Not going to say non-existent, I'm just going to say minimal. So just don't eat it every day and don't eat tons and tons of it. You should be okay. Should be. That's all I can say. I'm not a medical consultant. So don't sue me, don't yell at me. So anyway, so we got that nice and mixed in, that nice and sauteed in there. We've given it a little bit of time. All that stuff is condensed down. We've got that going on, double checking. Cardamom, cloves, tomato paste, ginger, garlic paste, saute for another 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so we're going to add some spices in here. So I'm going to bring over this. We're going to add our red chili powder, which in the recipe I wrote for just a half a teaspoon. So again, to your flavorings, about a half a teaspoon, okay? Then we're also going to add garam masala. So garam masala, we're going to add 2 teaspoons. There's 1. There's 2. We're going to add turmeric. Turmeric is, what did I tell you in the recipe? Sorry, 2 teaspoons. So half, there's 1, there's 2 teaspoons. Okay, so we're going to add that in there, and we're going to saute again for another 1 to 2 minutes. So that's going to just add, again, more flavor, another layer, another group of flavors, and another depth, another complexity. So we're just going to mix that in. And again, we're looking for thick. The cream is what's going to turn it into that gravy that you're all used to, that thinness, and that's what adds richness as well. So again, we're just condensing it down 1 to 2 minutes. There should be that. And if I push out a hole, we'll see it's barely ever moving back to the center. It's staying where it is. And a little bit of oil is kind of creeping along the edge. The more oil that comes out, the more close to true masala'd you are. Again, the way the Indians describe it, the way they say it's properly cooked when it starts to separate the oil. You don't have to go all that far, but if you have the time, go for it. But you can just, when it starts to separate out the oil, you know you've done the right amount of cooking. And each of these little stops and pauses of adding different layers of flavor does that. Okay, so yes, boom, straight up. We're going to go with that. We're good. We're going to add cream and salt to taste. Heavy cream, whipping cream, double cream, all the same thing. It's just a half a cup. If you ever do it, you're fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's a half a cup of cream. We're going to stir that in. That's going to turn our gravy. Okay? Turn it into gravy. Now, as far as salt to taste, again, I'm going to say, half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. We'll adjust at the end. But that's going to bring our thing. But this may seem a little still thick. But remember, we got all the liquid that's coming in from our marinade that's in that pan in the oven. All that's going to get dumped in here too. So that yogurt and all that other stuff in there, that's all going to get added in here. That's another layer of flavor. And so that's the thing. So we're going to do that. So again, teaspoon, up to a teaspoon, half a teaspoon. We'll adjust at the end. Should always adjust at the end. We're going to stir that in. Bring to a simmer, which means you've brought the heat back up from adding cold liquids. So that's when it comes to simmer. Is it bubbling? Yes, it is. Then we're good. So we're going to bring our chicken out of the oven. So good flavor smell. So there's our chicken from the oven. See all that liquid that's in there and all that? That's what we're looking for. It's cooked through. It's fine, but it's got lots of flavor. But that's going to add more to our gravy. Okay? So that's what we're going to dump in just gently. And I'm going to get that out of my way. And then we're going to stir that in. So again, that loosened up our gravy with all that liquid, the chicken juice, the yogurt, the lemon juice. All of that is now in our thing. We're going to turn our heat down a little bit so that we're not doing the volcanic bloops, mud pot bubbles, if you want, so that they bubble up and throw little splatters. We just want it at a very low simmer. We're going to do that, and we're going to do that. And this needs to saute, or saute, this needs to simmer away to, quote, heat the chicken through, make sure that it's cooked, but again, until it's ready, or until you're done. What I mean by that is that we're going to start doing our bread. This is going to sit over, we're going to stir it every now and then. I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to move the burner and everything to the back onto the actual stove. Behind me. And we're going to bring out our bread. Check our dough. We've about doubled in size. Now, before I spread any more turmeric into my dough, I'm going to give my hands a quick wash. So give me a second. Being off camera. Oh, sorry about the noise. Give you a chance to get your bread out. Okay, so at this moment, what we need to do before we start working on the dough, though, is we need to get our oven ready for that. Now, if you have a pizza stone, use a pizza stone. If you have a unglazed travertine tile like this from your local handyman's workshop, these are perfect for this. They're usually around $6 to $12. You just want to make sure that they're unglazed so that they're natural. This works great as a pizza stone as well, so this is a multi-use thing. If you have a pizza stone, use a pizza stone. If you don't have either of these, just use a baking sheet. You might want to flip it upside down. It's a little easier to work with, but that's up to you. And you're going to put that in your oven. These help as a thermal barrier, but it also sucks some of the moisture out. With a baking sheet, it's not going to suck the moisture out, so you may have to flip your naan partway through or near the end of cooking just to get it so that the steam gets away from the bottom and gets a little crispy, little brown, golden brown. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my oven. You want your rack like second down from the top. Hopefully that's where you are. If you need to adjust. We're going to put in our pizza stone or travertine. We're going to heat our oven up to 500 degrees and let it go while we start prepping our dough for our breads. So that's going to happen now. Mine is not going to be all the way to the top because of camera, because I need to be able to point in there with a camera in a little bit. So so I'm kind of cheating by being a little lower. 500 degrees, start it preheating. That's going to give it time while we do that to form our breads. And I'm going to do that right onto my work surface now. That's partially why I kept it from having any meats on it or vegetables on it. So in this case, we're going to take our dough. It's nice. We're just going to gather it up. Should be very smooth and very nice. Flour. And I forget where I put stuff sometimes. So a little dusting on the board. Okay. We're going to take our dough, we're going to knead it. Again, we're going to punch it down, and we're going to knead it through. And we are going to add flour to this as we go, because it's got sticky again, and that's fine. Again, yours may differ, but I'm just going to add a little more flour. Get some flour worked into it to dry off the surface. And we're just going to knead this for a couple of minutes, bring it all together. It's going to take as much flour as it takes. I don't have an answer for how much, and each time I make it, the batch is different. So it is what it is. So we're just going to knead it, put a little flour down. If it sticks to the board, we'll add a little bit more. I think I just hit the right amount, and we're good. So we're just going to knead it through. Now, restaurant naan, I'm sure you've all experienced it if you're here wanting to learn to make naan. Restaurant naan is served in those very big, like two-person face size, if you kind of get my meaning. And the reason they do that is because it looks really impressive. You don't need to make them that big, so don't worry about it. Eat two. People, now in India, the ones that do it like in the communal ovens in town, home cooks that come and use the communal ovens, they may make them that big so that they don't have to make as many. And for commercial purposes, they'll make them for, if they're selling them or trading them with others, they'll make them large because they look impressive. But again, you don't need to make them that big. So this amount of dough really should make 4 to 6. Okay, 4 pretty decent sized ones, 6 relatively small ones, you're fine. And again, you're going to tear it up anyway. So I got no issues with a little bit smaller. Plus they're easier to control. Okay, so I'm just going to need that again. I'm feeling for anytime it gets sticky or wants to stick to the bottom of the board, I'm just adding a little bit of flour. And see that little bit, and it just adds a little bit of flour. And again, it's just like making any bread. You're just looking for it to be well worked, not stuck to the board. And but we want a nice elastic. Now, when kneading the dough like this, what you're doing is you're developing those glutens. And you're making them go into those long chains, which give it that chewiness, that stretchiness that naan and other breads are known for. And that's what we want. A lot of naan recipes, I've looked at a lot of them online, and a lot of them are, they use baking sodas and eggs, and if you have to, there are ways for like health reasons, using gluten-free doughs or flours and so forth, you may have to cheat that way. But as you saw, it's such a simple dough. It's a very easy dough, or as you've been doing this. And that's the thing, but we want to develop those glutens because glutens make it chewy, make it, have that right tooth to it, as people will say. And that makes the right elasticity, and it'll help it rise because the gluten is what holds the gas of the yeast, and there's that. So here's the thing. If you've got it kneaded and it starts to do that, it's a little springy. See how it kind of pulls itself back together? It's not like gonna, but it means that you're right there. I'm gonna add one last dusting of flour. And just fold that through. And while I do that, I'm going to kind of make it into a log. Okay, so now we get into the whole big deal. You ready? How to measure them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. There. Are they perfect? Who cares? Do you? If you want to, make it perfect. But no reason. Again, we're just going to do that. So our oven is still preheating, so I'm not worried about it. But we're just going to take our hand, we'll pat it out. Now you can use a rolling pin. I think I did put that in your kneaded. Roll it out. You want it down to about 1/4 inch. Thick, but working with smaller pieces like this is another benefit of the smaller pieces. You don't need the rolling pin. You can just use the palm of your hand, smash it down till you're about 1/4 inch, a little less than 1/4 inch thick. And again, just a little dusting since it's going to sit here for a minute. I'm just going to give it a little dusting of flour on both sides. And there's one of our naans ready to go in the oven for as soon as it is ready and preheated. And it's that easy. So, again, a little bit of flour. Smoosh it with your palm. Work it out. And after this one, give my masala a stir. Okay, so give this masala a stir. Turn my heat down to very low. Oven's getting there. It's getting close. Okay, so we're going to keep forming our breads. Now, you can wrap these in, you can put these in, a Ziploc bag. in just the ball form or even spread out like this. You can, and you can put them in your refrigerator. They'll last for 2-3 days. You can put them in the freezer. They'll last quite a while. I don't know. I've never left them in there for more than a month, so I don't know. But they'll definitely last at least a month in the freezer. So you don't have to make them all. You don't have, you don't have to turn them all out tonight and bake them all out tonight. If you only need 2, make 2. If you need 4, make 4. If you need all 6, make 6. Again, some of them are going to be a little smaller. Some of them are going to be a little bit larger. Again, you saw my measuring technique. I ripped it apart until I had 6 pieces. I'm not concerned about exact everything. You want to do a scale and you want to weigh everything, go for it. That's your choice. I'm not concerned about it for breads. It's to be ripped up and used to soak up gravies anyway. So again, I'm just patting it out till it's about 1/4 inch, a little under 1/4. This one, diabetic size, yeah. So again, it also means that that actually puts out an interesting thing is that if you have people that have diabetes, so therefore are with watching their carbs, not gluten, then smaller is better. So they can at least have one, and not overdo their carbs. So think of it that way. When we do go out to restaurants and Indian restaurants and they bring us naan, garlic naan, chili naan, whatever we order, which is fabulous. An order usually has 2 naan in it, which means I get a naan and 3/4 because unfortunately with her needing to watch her carbs, she doesn't get to eat the whole thing. So again, smaller is good. And that's it. So again, we just have these nice and padded out. We're just getting them down to about 1/4 inch thick. Then we spring back a little bit. That's part of the thing with the dough. And that's part of that elasticity. That was what we want. So we're good. Now, when we put them in the oven, they're going to rise, they're going to bubble, they're going to do their thing. How much are they going to do that? Well, it depends on many, many things. The flour, the yeast, the ghee, the yogurt, the salt, the temperature, the humidity, the altitude, the time of year, the month, the day. Pretty much you never know until it happens. Right. Yeah, is Mercury rising or in retrospect, whatever. The point is that anything can alter how it rises each batch. So I never know until I put them in the oven and do. Our oven is almost there to 500. I hope yours is coming along. Our chicken has done its thing. I'm going to turn off its heat so that I don't have to keep an eye on it. But it has simmered down. I'm going to put it, trim it there for just a second. So hopefully you can see that. Okay, we got a good shot. Okay, so again, thick, nice, hefty gravy. This is a good style. If you want to go on the more British side, this is kind of a more British style, dump in the rest of that little heavy cream, another 1/2 cup worth, thin it out. And I may do that. And if you need, I may do that at the end, just depends. But the thing is, at this point, it is cooked. The chicken is cooked through. It is fine. What I'm going to do is give it a quick taste for salt. And then we're going to add our dried fenugreek leaves right before we serve. So don't do that now. You want that full aroma thing. So we're going to hold off on the dried, but I want to taste it for salt. Nope, I think it's perfectly fine. So I don't need to do anything more to this. This is going to sit off to the side while we finish up our bread. Our oven, my oven, is now at 485 degrees. So we're almost there. Now, Naan bread is normally cooked in a tandoor oven, slapped up on the side. If you've all seen a tandoor oven, it's a big insulated box or thing. And inside, it looks like a vase. It kind of comes up, then curves into a smaller opening at the top. And you slap it right where it curves. Called the bell curve is what I call it. And that's where they cook the naan. And tandoor ovens take a lot of fuel to get up to temperature, but once they get to temperature, they take very little fuel to keep the temperature. So in India, where fuel is scarce and has been scarce, the community will have community ovens, tandoor ovens. They all chip in some fuel. They throw in the fuel in the morning, get it up to temperature, and then it only takes a little bit of heat to keep it there. Now, at that bell curve, it's been, they range in temperature, but it usually hovers around 750 degrees Fahrenheit to around 1,000 to 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit at that bell curve, depending on what time of day, how long the oven's been lit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is really darn hot if you didn't figure that out. Your oven can't get that hot. It'll melt. And I would never tell you to break the self-cleaning thing on your thing and avoid the warranty to make it get that hot, ever. I would never tell you to do that. But if you want to cook it that hot, you either have to get a tandoor or find another way. But the thing is that so tandoor, when they do that and they throw it in tandoor, you know, depending on the size of the tandoor. Now at the Dhaba restaurant where I used to work and do classes and so forth, it could hold 10 to 12 naan on the inside. They had a very large tandoor, and we could fit 10 to 12. And it basically went, we'd get it on there, we'd take the little pillow, that it goes over, we'd slap it aside, slap the next one, go around, and when we got back to number one, it was cooked. It took about 35 to 50 seconds, depending on time of day, because of the intense heat. We can't get that in our ovens, as I said, so we're gonna have to play with it. We're gonna have to watch them. We're looking for golden brown. We're looking for that. If we get a little bit of blackening, that's fine. Tandoors do that. Little char is good flavor, so don't worry about it. My oven should beep at me any minute. 5 more degrees. Now, we need to get, I'm going to dampen another towel because we need a little bit of dampness on our hands. We don't want wet hands. We want dampness. The dampness is going to help steam it initially. It's also going to keep there, just beep. It's going to keep it from sticking to the pan, to the pizza stone or whatever. And the steam is part of it. When we do, again, in an Indian restaurant for tandoor, they sprinkle a little bit of salted water, very, very mild salted water on it, and then slap it to the side. Helps it stick in some ways, but it also helps steam and keep and make bubbles. So I just need to dampen a towel so that I have that. I'm sorry for going off camera again. Got a clean, damp rag. Not wet. Okay, so I'm going to toss one in, and then in a minute, I'm going to pick up a camera that I have down by my feet. So this is going to be an unsteady shot, I guarantee it. And I'm going to try to show you it rising so you see what it looks like. But I'm going to take this small one here, and I'm going to put it in my hands. Again, damp hand, toss it, flip-flop it back and forth as I wrote in the recipe, right? And then we're going to put it in the oven. Again, I'm not going to show you me putting it in. We're going to put that on there. Okay, so we get that. Now, I'm going to try to get a shot before you switch over. So this is what, hopefully this works. That's the oven. Can you see? Okay, so it just hit that. It's already starting to dry off on the top. This one is going to be bad. I admit it because I'm just having the oven open. But the point is that you can go off that camera, and we'll go back to it when they're closer to ready. But I wanted to show you that one. You can see the heat immediately. You throw it on there, and that top gets dry. I mean, these are dry, but it looks dry. It looks like it's got a skin on it. That means your temperature is good. It means you're in that right general area. So again, I'm going to go ahead and toss in another one because that first one, like I said, I had the door open too long, but I'm going to toss in another one. And then we're just going to go ahead and let that go until they're ready to go. So I just flip-flopped that in there. I'm going to take this other one here, and I'm going to flip-flop it back and forth. in my hands, just get a little dampness on it, in and on the oven, or on the stone. As I said, because I'm doing the camera too, I dropped my shelf one lower than I would want to. The higher up in the oven, obviously, the more heat there is, because that's where it's circulating heat rises. And so you get the most heat at the very top of your oven. Give yourself usually the one down from the top so that you have some room, and in case it puffs way up, it doesn't hit the top of the oven. But so the higher it is, the better. In this case, though, because I have the camera and I'm dropped down one. I've never cooked at this level, and I've never cooked these in this oven. This is a new oven for me. We just moved into this house not too long ago. Haven't had a chance to redo the kitchen. So this is a bit of an experiment on my part for this location, not the recipe. The recipe works, but it shows that everything is slightly different every time you do it, no matter where you do it. So you'll have to work with your oven. We'll see how it works. Now, I wrote that it should take about 3 to 6 minutes to cook. That was based on the old oven, and that it took about 5-ish minutes to cook the naan till they were golden and all that. So I'm taking a guess. And so I'm just gonna have to do this by eye. I'm gonna check it. Again, I'm not gonna show you on camera yet. Take a look. We're getting a little puffy. We're doing okay. We got a little bit of time. So this is it at this point. I may add, again, the cream to thin out the gravy a little bit, to extend that dish a bit. Again, your choice. All we have to do is add the fenugreek, the dried fenugreek leaves to that. And if we want to thin it, we'll do that. I'll chop up some coriander for the salad, and I'm going to plate everything. But as soon as I have 2 naan, I'm going to go ahead and get plating for you guys, and then you guys can cook and do all that. And I will be here to answer questions. I will not be on camera, but I will be on microphone while I do a little straightening and so forth. And you guys can take that moment while you're finishing up to ask me any questions you want and all that. But so don't think this, I'm not ending at this exact moment, but I'm getting to that. I'm just getting you prepared. So I'm going to put these over here on paper. And wipe down my board. So that I can serve and it doesn't look all flour based. Okay. It's good enough because that'll hide under the plate. You'll all know it's there, but it'll look good. So, check my bread. Almost. That gives me more time to clean that off. So again, it's an experiment per oven. It's an experiment per batch. Every time you do it, you're going to have to play with it a little bit. And how much it rises depends on everything in the world. It may puff up like it does in the picture that is on the recipe, where it's just like this giant balloon. And sometimes it just kind of thickens by twice. As long as it tastes good and soaks up gravy, oh, you're fine, you know? So you've done right. Okay. So I'm going to show. So the first one we threw in is looking, just getting a little dark on the bottom, but you can see that dryness. They're not puffing as much as they could. Hope that was a good enough shot. But it just means that we have another minute or so on the first one we threw in. Again, if it gets a little charred, fine. It's perfectly acceptable. If not, it's no big deal. So we just go with it as we can. So again, any questions, anything like that, feel free to ask. I'm just on this last little couple of moments while I finish up this done, so I can plate and show you that. And then I get to start cleaning up and serve dinner. And then when I'm done cleaning, I get to eat too. So it's a lovely thing.
Bill says everything's fantastic, cleaning up a bit. Can you do naan on a barbecue?
Yes. As a matter of fact, that's what I normally use because it adds the flame and I can get it much hotter. Okay, Bill asks if you can make naan on a barbecue. The answer is yes. I normally make it on a barbecue. And what I'll do is I'll turn both sides to full hot, get it as hot as I can get the barbecue with the lid down, put it on, and then I turn the flame off on one side. Still hot grill, but not direct flame anymore. Place it on there until it bubbles and looks puffy. And then I flip it onto the direct flame to get a char and then take it off. Takes about 2 to 3 minutes per naan. It's quick. It's much quicker than an oven because of the higher heat. With the lid down too. Throw it on, lid down. One at a time. Throw it on, lid down. About 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. Lift, flip to the other side, lid down. Minute and a half. Okay? But yes, works for that. As a matter of fact, that with, I think, directions, I believe, Bill, is on my website. Under Indian food, I believe that there is a grilled naan recipe on my website. I believe I put one there. I hope I'm right. Okay, so another minute. I apologize. Like I said, it's a little bit of a, gotta wait. Get tiny cutting board. So I just had to get a little tiny cutting board because I just need to chop some cilantro. It's the last of my chopping. So again, I did wash this. I'm not going to take it apart, but I'm just going to chop up some cilantro. Just bunch it up till it's nice, tight, kind of like rolling a cigar. And I'm just going to go through the leaves. And the stems go in the trash. Or you could save them to make soup, or for Thai curry pastes or other things. And that's the only way I eat cilantro is the stems usually pounded inside Thai curry pastes. So anyway, so there's my cilantro for the salad that I will plate, which then Lauren gets to eat so that you can see it. And okay, I'm going to pull this out. I'm not going to, but so this is the bottom. We've gotten a golden brown. It's a little dry. It's a little bit stiff. This is perfectly fine. It means it's cooked through. It didn't puff up as much as it could have, which is fine. Again, it's a crapshoot every time. But to add to that pliability, we want to get, my basting brush is missing. Fine, we'll use a spoon. So we just want to put a little bit of ghee on there. And yes, it's a lot on this, but I'm just going to drizzle it back into the container because I had to use a spoon instead of a thing. But we're just going to do, and that adds to that pliability. And then you can keep this warm underneath a wrapped in foil. You could wrap it in a warm tea towel, or in a tea towel and set it off to the side. You can cook them all the way till done, and you can serve them And you can put them in the freezer or the fridge in a Ziploc bag. When you go to reheat them, just sprinkle them with a little bit of water. Sprinkle them with a little bit of water, and then heat them for a couple of minutes in the oven, and you're fine. You cooked. Check the one inside. Give it another minute. Give it another minute. Okay, so I'm going to start finishing up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over. I'm going to put it on there. Bring back over my raita. Give it a quick stir since it's been sitting and some of the liquid has separated out. So a little bit of raita. So, can that be seen? Okay, so again, very thick, very nice. I am going to go ahead and thin this out, which you have every right to do or not do. It's your choice. I'm just going to go ahead and add in another half a cup of cream. That's just going to thin that gravy out. It's going to stretch it out and make it that much more of it, more to serve. You can see how it thins that gravy out. It does turn it more orange than red because it's more lighter color, but that's perfectly acceptable to me. And then the last thing we're going to do is add those cashmere or the kasuri methi or the dried fenugreek leaves for that last little boost of flavor. And they are behind me here. And I believe that I said to put in about a half a teaspoon. So just take them. Hopefully you found these in the grocery store. About a half a teaspoon, which is, about that. Give them a good crush and rub in your fingers. You get that incredible, almost maple-like smell that comes off of them. From that, we're going to give it a quick stir in. Check my bread. So again, nice and cooked, hot, right? I'm going to put that off to the side. Add a little bit of the ghee just to it. If you hadn't noticed, I've got chef's hands, which means I handle hot food on a very regular basis, which means I've learned to be stupid. And I grab very hot things and hold them. So there's some naan. Garnish with a little bit of cilantro. And then give me 1 second for the salad. Because I'm going to mix in the cilantro, so I need a small bowl for that so that I can mix it. So give it a quick stir. And find me a spoon. A pinch of cilantro. Then stir that so you will see it with the coriander mixed in. one full Indian meal. So, oh, back towards me, back towards me. There we go. They look good? Wonderful. So everybody, again, there's our meal. We've got our naan. Again, it could get fluffier. It depends on lots of factors. We've got that nice chopped chickpea-ish salad-ish thing. We've got our chicken tikka masala, and we've got raita to tone it down, to dip our naan in, to do that. Add more ghee to your naan if you want. It's up to you. Again, it's all wonderful. It's all good. It's very, it's very user-friendly. I hope you guys have been following along easily. Before I go off camera, follow me on social media. Visit TazCooks.com. Give the page a like. It's not the same thing as Facebook likes. It does small businesses really good. If you follow me on Facebook and you have the wherewithal, give me a review on Facebook and or on Yelp. It helps out immensely. You would be surprised. If you have any questions, like I said, I'll be cleaning up a little bit, cooking off the last of my naan. And again, I hope you guys have had a wonderful evening. I hope you guys enjoy your meal, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I will be on to answer questions. So you'll hear a little bit of banging in the background, but you can sign off anytime you wish. Camera's just going to be shut off to my place card that you saw at the beginning while I clean up and get some other stuff done. So again, thank you. I hope you've been inspired, and I hope you stay inspired. Good night.